Ladies and gentlemen, it's Friday night, and you know what that means. Welcome to the first episode of Season 3, 1998, Monday Night Raw's War, WWF. We're going crazy. We're live down here at the Shot of Nostalgia Studios over at the Turnbuckle Tavern. I'm good old Mike Belcaster, and my God, my good tag team partner in crime here.
Live from the No Sale Studios, this is the Ace of the Tavern, ACEFIELD Retro, and through a sea of signs and low-grade humor, low blows, and lots of boobies, we are here in the Attitude Era. It is time to get to WWF 1998. We've been wading through all of this, and man, we got a lot of information to break down for you. Thank you guys for the support. I'm so pumped to get into this, my man.
Dude, I cannot tell you how beautiful the watch through of these 3 episodes were. It's just so reminiscent, so fantastic, such a shot of nostalgia. It's great, man.
So we switched up the format a little bit. If you guys have been following us since season 1 with WCW, and obviously ECW threw us for a loop because it was a shorter season, condensed to 11 episodes. This will be another one of those marathons, but instead of doing 2 episodes, we were doing 2 Nitros in season 1. We decided to condense it a little bit more because we're becoming experts about condensing time. I think we're going to be doing 2 episodes of Raw and a pay-per-view, sometimes 3 episodes of Raw, depending on where we're at. We're going to fly through this season. We have a lot of information to break down. Gives us more newsletter, more content, more things to discuss. And the best part is, Mike Belcaster, you and I lived this. This is right in the prime of when I was a fan, when I was a kid, 9 years old, getting into it and just having an absolute blast watching this. My childhood was lighting up by reliving all these moments.
Dude, 100%. I'm so excited to hopefully we hit a Chicago show down the line because I'm probably in the crowd somewhere. Little Mike Belcaster holding a Raw's War sign, you know, rocking my Stone Cold Steve Austin 316 shirt. I'm pumped, dude. This is going to be such a damn joy.
So as we mentioned, we're going to be reviewing 2 Raws today. The January 5th, 1998, the first Raw of the year of 1998. And of course, the January 12th, 1998 Raw. And then we're going to get into the Royal Rumble 1998. We're right on time. Last week, we're about almost a week away from the Royal Rumble 2023. So we're going to travel all the way back to that crazy, crazy Rumble where, I mean, it was predictable. Everybody knew. I mean, even as an 8-year-old, I knew Stone Cold was coming out, but it was the best predictable ending you could have because he was hotter than hell.
Yeah, the crowd, man, it's one of the best things about these shows. Like just seeing the signs, seeing the fans, everything's so lively. It really, even from this generation that we are in, literally right now in 2023, going back to 98, wrestling was probably at the highest high point that it might be in our entire lifetime. It's insane, man. The amount of signs was just absurd. The fans were rabid and ready to roll. The 1-800-COLLECT blimp was floating around the arena.
Yeah, and this was the height of the casual fan coming into the wrestling world and understanding like the crossover too. We're of course going to talk about Mike Tyson. He's a huge part of the build to Royal Rumble and then eventually WrestleMania 14. But Mike Tyson bridged that gap with the casual fan where WWF was the destination to be. And we're going to talk a little bit in the newsletter in the beginning about how it's so crazy how they want to identify as. And Dave Meltzer mentions publicity and bad publicity. And I imagine WWE now would not want anything to do with it, but it's almost like they thrived on getting bad press. Like we talked about the ECW Connecticut article, episode 11, where they were calling them extreme fighting and they couldn't get a pay-per-view deal. It seemed like WWF was seeking that out and wanted to. I mean, remember the Super Bowl commercial as well. Yeah, they just wanted to look edgier than possible. We want boobs. We want to cut people's private parts off. We want everything that will make people wince. We want to be that degenerate. And I don't know, man, they thrived in it.
Yeah, hopefully we won't be covering no choppy PP here, but I think we might cross that path. I'm pretty sure we do.
That might be 1999, but we'll see.
I think it's early 99. Yeah, but still awesome stuff. I mean, just seeing the faces that come out to the ring, the storytelling being told. This is a must-see season of Shot of Nostalgia, but also a must-see year of pro wrestling. I mean, you got some of the craziest shit happening, including an appearance from the NWA on Monday night. Or like it's mind-boggling, man. I remember it, but I also don't remember little bits and pieces. It was really refreshing to come back to this and see, you know, all that stuff happen. I mean, we got probably some of the best in-ring talent that you could possibly get, and a lot of them running down their time. We won't see them a lot after this year, and a lot of them kind of sparking up from the ground here. So I mean, we're getting a lot of great storytelling coming from 1998, man.
Yeah, and before we get to happy hour, the one difference between this season and the other seasons we've done is that, for me personally, I had to go back and watch things for the first time. Of course, there's moments you've seen through highlights and packages, but part of the joy of WCW 1996 was building the context of that moment at Bash to the Beach where Hogan turns heel. But here, this is rewatching it through adult eyes after watching it as a child, and I was locked into 1998. So all these episodes, you discussed it, and I was talking about it before we got on air. When we watch this, it's almost like I remember all of this between the attires and the crowds and the sound effects, everything just brings you all the way back. So this really is a shot of nostalgia for both of us.
Absolutely, man. The highest era of the bone crunching action figure era. We're going through it right now, man. Like it's a lot of these faces I'm seeing. I'm like, I still have those toys from when I was a kid. I remember buying these. Like it's so great. I could go downstairs right now, pull out my big monster ring, grab out my bin of bone crunchers, and we could relive this Rumble right now. I'm so down.
I am so down for that. But the one guy who doesn't have a bone crunching figure is Dave Meltzer. Let's get into the happy hour and talk about everything going on in 1998 to build some context for everybody.
Season 3 Dusty, still just as ferocious as he always has been.
I mean, the bumpers I feel like can never be updated. They're just so perfect. And like, I don't know if Chad knew what he was doing when he created them, but they are the absolute perfect bumpers for what we're doing.
I'm here for it.
All right, let's get into the January 5th, 1998 newsletter. And it's the first one of the year. And we're going to start with the show from the Nassau Coliseum in my stomping grounds, Long Island, New York. And the biggest piece I want to pull from this is Meltzer says there wasn't much wrestling on a 2-hour show, 20 minutes in total, but the Raw on 12/29 from the Nassau Coliseum was maybe the best Raw in a while. So that small quote spoke so much to me that Dave Meltzer, wrestling historian, is still talking about storytelling. And that, I think, the microcosm of this is 20 minutes of wrestling in the ring. This kind of last Raw of 1997 builds what we're looking for in 1998. Less wrestling, more story, more edgier product. It's not about what's happening in the ring. We were going to discuss things happening in the ring, but most of the moments we talk about during 1998 is outside of the ropes. It really is. It's going to be moments that we talk about forever. But think about a 5-star match in 1998. I bet you can't think of one.
I could not off the top of my head for the life of me.
Well, that's the craziest part is like 20 minutes in a 2-hour show. We would probably sit here on a AEW wrap-up show. If that happened on Dynamite, we would be appalled. And obviously different product and different fandom, and we're in a different lifetime here with wrestling, but it just spoke to what they were becoming. It was more of just it was a type of show that it was Jerry Springer. It was daytime TV, Judge Judy. That's what it was aspiring to be. Howard Stern. That's what they were modeling themselves after.
100%. And here's the other thing too, is wrestling in 98 was like peak television. Like, I don't think it gets better than that. Like, this outdoes any sitcom. This outdoes any sports that's going on. Like, it was a time and a place to be because the fans wanted to be on TV. That was like their 15 minutes of fame. Oh, I was in the crowd on Monday Night Raw. You could see my, shut up Triple H sign. And like, there's so much cool stuff to go along with it. But like, I was telling you, like, I don't think you could ever replicate this timeline. Like, I don't think we'll ever see anything at the heights of wrestling in this year. This is insanity, especially coming from, WCW, ECW that we covered. You move into this, this is night and day. This is like the Terror Dome, and then everything else is just like, it falls way less to this because you're seeing a huge passion from the fan base. You see, there's people in the crowd. I was cracking up at people's reactions throughout this because they were in it, man. All anymore. Like, people were like seriously focused on what was going on. And like they were really tied into it. I love it, man. Best time to be a fan, 1998.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And all the moments that we see here, they're the original. I mean, obviously they're pulling from other promotions, and wrestling repeats itself. And I'm sure a lot of the guys, we talk about Jim Cornette is involved here. So I'm sure he's talking about time in Smoky Mountain and let's reuse this storyline. But for the most part, most of the stuff we see later on the line, they're pulling from this era. Think about the beer bath that happens. Think about the stuff that happens throughout the Attitude Era. They recreate it multiple times because it worked here.
Yeah, I mean, even AEW brought Mike Tyson in, I mean, for the last couple of years randomly because they thought it was going to be as impactful as it was. But it's just not the same oomph. This Cold Stone Steve Austin, you know.
Well, perfect transition here. They started a show-long Mike Tyson tease on this episode of Raw, the last of 1997, which at least came off. And this is Meltzer's take here, and he's dead wrong. So when he's right, we call him right, but he's dead wrong. And he says it came off as a pathetic ratings play because of how it was handled and watching the crowd groan at the end of the show when they did the payoff. They kept teasing the name until at the end of the show, saying that the WWF was entering negotiations to get Tyson at Mania. So he said, obviously correctly promoted, and WWF would be expected to correctly promote it. A Tyson versus Shamrock match could do huge box office, maybe bigger than any boxing match of 1998, let alone wrestling match, if they convinced people ahead of time that it would be a shoot. Even if it would, they'd have a hard time convincing anyone since it was a WWF show. But let's cut the speculating right here. It isn't going to happen. Tyson's people are not going to risk him putting him in a match that the odds are he'll lose very quickly. All right, so he was right that Tyson doesn't wrestle, but I think he didn't see the appeal of Mike Tyson as his out-of-the-box character because the Attitude Era didn't exist yet. We know that the archetype exists now. You can bring in a celebrity and do all the things you want to do with them, but he was thinking Tyson a competitor. He was banned from boxing at this point, but I don't think he could see the writing on the wall. It was Tyson the celebrity, not the athletic competitor.
Yeah, I mean, nobody was more over sports-wise in '98 than Mike Tyson was, and it was a huge deal. I mean, they towed it up the ass through these 3 episodes we cover here. It is a focal point, even to the point where they bring out what's his name? I can't think of it right now. Don King. You know,
Yes.
they're talking about Don King. I was going to say Dredrick Tatum from The Simpsons because it's the same character, but yeah, man. I mean, it's absolutely batshit huge, and it goes to prove. I mean, I remember WrestleMania. Like the second I started this first Raw, I was like, I already know where we're going. Like the whole roadmap is in here, like firmly. I know this more than I know U.S. history. You know,
and it's pretty crazy though, like with the Mike Tyson stuff, and people need to understand the significance of him coming in because we're in a different landscape in 1998. There isn't the internet, there isn't social media, there isn't this celebrity that's created. As far as celebrities go, he was at the top of the peak. He created the pay-per-view market and set a lot of different, I mean, he was setting records. So this was a huge deal for WWF to do business with him and have him come in on an equal playing field. And Meltzer does talk about him potentially showing up as a special guest. And he said, if it's just to do a ref bit or a skit, unless he'll come in for a bargain price, his name isn't going to mean that much involved in a pro wrestling to be worth millions on a pay-per-view. And it will tarnish his image at a time where his PR people need to do everything to remove the tarnish he's already put on it and give WWF a lot of negative publicity in the process. So I wouldn't say that like WrestleMania 14 they didn't lose buy rates because of Tyson, but I guess look at it this way. If you're booking WrestleMania 14, does Stone Cold Steve Austin's name draw big enough, or do they need Tyson? I mean, this is also going back to, as your fan. Do you think they needed Tyson to put that main event over?
man, I honestly don't think they needed Tyson. I think Tyson, as you stated so beautifully earlier, was the attention grabber for the casual fan. Uh, it turned what WWF was to water cooler talk. You're like, you know, people going to work after that Mania, seeing, holy shit, Mike Tyson refereed a fucking match on, like, you know, people talked about it, and that was the thing, and you couldn't wait for the Monday Night Raw after to see the fallout from it, see what was planned, what was going on, and I thought they did an amazing job hyping it up. I thought they did a fantastic job. I think the crowd was already over with Stone Cold. Like Stone Cold's already capping shit. You know, the arenas are sold out. We see fans really die harding into everything. They're marking out, and so are we. But adding, you know, an extra topping to the Sunday, why the fuck not?
Yeah, and Tyson was used so perfectly in the build-up, and I know a lot of people go back to some of the bad acting he had here, but as far as the buzz goes, that moment at WrestleMania 14, and we'll obviously get there in a few episodes, that moment is such a huge moment because of it feels like the baddest man on the planet is anointing the other baddest man on the planet. And yeah, I mean, you can't really buy that type of publicity. And at the time, Meltzer says negative publicity is a bad thing. But really, if you look at it, any publicity for WWF at the time is a good thing. And it's almost like they're striving to have this negative press. And it's so crazy to say, but Vince wanted people to kind of open their eyes and say, like, I cannot believe they did that. And that's the type of stuff he was seeking.
Yeah, a wise man once said, controversy creates cash. And this created a fuckload of cash.
That is very true. And of course, we'll get back to Tyson. He's going to be all over the newsletter. Let's talk about Crush. He was officially given his release as well. He was legitimately injured in the Kane deal as Kane accidentally dropped him wrong. Crush ended up really upset over the situation to management and told some people off that pretty much paved the way to end his tenure. Chains is going to end up in a singles push while Skull and 8-Ball are going to become a regular tag team. So yeah, Crush, I mean, he had a really nice run in, of course, different platforms. This is probably his worst iteration during the Attitude Era, I would say. And Skull and 8-Ball with DOA. We're going to talk about some of the tag teams. The tag division's fucking rough in 1998.
It is rough. It is fucking rough to say the least, but it's still very entertaining as we'll get into it. But it just full circle here. Kane just doesn't like people who wear masks. It's Crush was his first victim.
Of course, we'll get back to them. So we have all rumors going about potentially a return of Sid Vicious. Meltzer saying that there's nothing happening, no discussions happen with Sid Udy, his shoot name. And he was told he was going to be released. Titan has made no inquiries about bringing him back. Sid Vicious has told friends that when he's able to return to wrestling, he has no intention of working for the WWF as he's bitter about the situation leading to his dismissal. And then Meltzer says, this is wrestling. So our favorite quote, never say never. Just that there's nothing to any of the rumors about him coming in and being considered as part of the DX pay-per-view show. So, I mean, we don't see Sid for a bit. I think he winds up in WCW later this year, but never say never.
I'm very against Sid coming back to WWF at this time. I didn't want anything to do with Sid. I was on WCW for the time being. I was bouncing back and forth. I was cable hopping, Sid was one of those guys. He never really did anything for me. And I think his career really ended up being that fatal injury, that he screwed his leg up. And
softball, right?
Softball. When we booked him for a show in 2012, and my responsibility with the wife to go pick him up. And I was showing Nicole footage of the leg break beforehand. I was like, dude, we're picking up this guy, So little behold, we pick him up, we get him in the car, and the first thing that comes out of either anybody's mouth is my wife's like, oh, is this the guy with the fucked up leg? And it turned the conversation so sour. It was great. Never ever would I have wanted it to go differently. Sid was just like, man, that was the worst moment of my career. I was like, yeah, I could understand why. But listen, man, again, character-wise, just never did anything for me. I'm happy they kept him away from, the Attitude Era and let him go to WCW and do his thing.
Yeah, and we always talk about things and we'll talk about returns that could have happened, injuries that did happen, and what happens if they didn't happen. And there's so much to be said about that butterfly effect and how it changes and who doesn't get pushed and what moment doesn't happen. If a little moment doesn't happen, and that's a moment right there. If Sid Vicious comes back, he's getting a push of some kind. That means he takes away a spot for somebody else, and it changes everything. So I wouldn't change anything that happened in 1998 because it all happened perfectly.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, let's talk about Dude Love. We talked about Mick Foley in ECW 1995, and right now Dude Love is really white hot. This is the third iteration of that character. We've seen Mankind, we've seen Cactus Jack. Now we're getting Dude Love. And the plan right now is for Dude Love to work most of the house shows, allowing him to do a less taxing nightly working style, doing mostly comedy. On the big shows after Angles where Dude gets beat up on TV, they're going to unveil Cactus. And when he's Cactus, he'll do more of his physically taxing style. The basic idea is to get a few Cactus-style matches per year, but not to destroy his body, to the point where his career is shortened any more than the damage he's already done to himself will shorten it. This is the part where people don't really think about with Foley.
Yeah.
It feels like a creative outlet to be able to do these characters and have this different type of performance in the ring. And Dude Love obviously is a completely different outreach that he's trying to bring out to the fans. But what are your thoughts on that with the strategic nature of being like, we know he's beat up. We know he's got a lot of miles in that body. Let's let him do the Dude act on house shows. So he's working the circuit, but he's not doing as much as he used to.
I think it's perfect, man. I mean, you got to kind of bring it out. I mean, obviously their mentality here is shot by next year because Mankind is in some of the most physical, gruesome matches. I mean, even this year we get to see some rowdy shit going on.
He gets thrown up the Hell in a Cell this year. This is,
so I mean, in theory, it would have worked out great, but eventually Mankind takes the bigger grunt of anything, I think. I mean, including we got Rumble next year when he fights The Rock. those chair shots, we've talked about it many times. The Hell in a Cell. Mick Foley's in probably the worst next 2 years of his life.
This is, and so what you're saying in the DeLorean, he's not going to come back to 98, 99 to just relive those years. Because like you said, June 98, that's when the King of the Ring Hell in a Cell match happens, where he gets tossed off the top, and people forget, thrown through the middle too, choke slam through, where that thing's not supposed to break, where the chair hits him right between the mouth, and
absolutely brutal. Yeah. But like I said, in theory, this is a great plan on paper, but the execution was the drizzling shits, because they basically killed Foley 3 times. He is a cat in spirit.
All right, let's go to the last part of the January 5th newsletter. And Meltzer had to put this in the newsletter because throughout 97, there had been a lot of shoot issues with DX and the fans. And right now, he said there were no reported problems from the DX at the house shows, although as part of their act, they mooned the fans at the end of the match. So there is an issue in Chicago, where your stomping ground is, where Michaels worked with Taker. It was a run-in DQ finish, and Shawn Michaels was nailed with a Coca-Cola before the match. And over the house mic, grabbed it and said if he wasn't going to wrestle until the fan who threw it was kicked out, which the fan was. We know how, let's use the word, testy Shawn Michaels was during this time. But DX, like, it's weird because everyone looks at them as the lovable heels, that they were getting a lot of praise for their character work, and they sort of ushered in, along with others, for this edgier product. But they were getting legit heat at these house shows, to the point where, like, Shawn Michaels was egging people on, trying to punch them.
Yeah, no, it was bad. I remember going to a lot of these house shows. It was a lot of I don't know, he just didn't have the patience anymore. And it was more like, hey, fuck him, I'm Shawn Michaels. That's where it felt like his head got too big for his ego, or his ego got too big for his head, one of the two. But they were definitely always trying to rile up the crowd, as opposed, I mean, we've seen it with lots of wrestlers. We've seen Punk do it. Recently we've seen Sami Zayn calling out people for, throwing slander at him, and listen, you gotta stand your grounds when it's appropriate. But this was uncalled for actions. This was Shawn Michaels being that prick Shawn Michaels.
And the difference, he takes some advice from Scott Hall. The dude gets nailed in the face with a Coke while he's standing in the ring, and just like no sells, it puts it right through his hair. And Shawn Michaels is all hot about it. So
yeah, no, Shawn Michaels got hot about a lot of things. That was the fun part of it.
WCW, I feel like they welcome throwing trash in the ring, while WWF, you rarely see it, and they definitely treated it with, that's a no-no in WWF. That's why it's weird for me to go back and watch WCW, because that's almost the heat that those guys in WCW wanted when they got enough heat. Think about the Bash of the Beach moment. It wouldn't be the same unless they're throwing trash in the ring.
Yeah, I think 97 was the year that they like kind of banned bottles and stuff like that. And like by the time we're here now, nobody's throwing shit anymore. Everybody's kind of backed off of that. They don't want to get their ticket taken away for doing something stupid, which is a good thing, I think, in the long run.
Well, this is the year. I mean, if you bought a card stock ticket, you would have no laser pointers on here, but God knows we'll see a shitload of those throughout the show. Laser pointers were huge in the 90s. If you're a young kid watching this, laser pointers were the shit. People would stand on the last row and they try to put it on the wrestlers, and they were annoying, but they still came into the arenas despite what people were saying. All right, let's go to the January 12th, 98 newsletter. And then Meltzer says there was a tremendous amount of mainstream media conjecture stemming from the WWF's announcement that they were negotiating for Mike Tyson to be a part of WrestleMania. So the appearance of Don King doing a taped interview on the 1-5 Raw signifies that there has to be some sort of agreement between the two sides already reached. Meltzer says exactly what that entails and what significance it will play is more of a question, and no one has any answers at the present time. He will go into more about Tyson, but the tale of two newsletters here. He says it's not a possibility the week before, and I think it becomes quite clear that it is going to happen, and they have kind of a plan in place. We see, when you see this, WrestleMania is the goal. Celebrities in WrestleMania go, they're ice cream and whipped cream. That's exactly what you want there. That's what WrestleMania was built on, from WrestleMania 1 at this point till WrestleMania 14. There's at least one celebrity or multiple at these WrestleManias, and Tyson's just the latest introduction to that.
Yeah, and listen, Tyson was a refreshing one too, because it wasn't it didn't water down the product anymore. It almost legitimized it a little bit more. So the fans that were watching at home were like, "Oh shit, if Tyson's here, we know it's the real deal. It's something that we should be watching. Buy that pay-per-view. Let's see what happens." It was really good. It was a far cry from, Cyndi Lauper, and you come a long way, but this was the perfect time to do it and the perfect person to pick for this generation, this 1999 era, 1998 era. It's of course it's good, man. It's Mike Tyson.
So Meltzer talks about the eventual plan and the belief that's going on, and he's going to compare it to WCW and the celebrities they're bringing in on the year leading up. Obviously, we go back to 97. There's some celebrities coming into, whether it be athletes or other celebrities. WCW was using that sort of typecast the WWF created, as we mentioned with WrestleMania. They're trying to bridge that casual fan. Tyson never was the guy they could grab, and Bischoff and the crew over there were negotiating with him, but they were trying. But for WWF, the basic belief is that Tyson's going to wind up as the referee for one of the main events on the 329 Mania show from the Fleet Center in Boston. And he's talking money here. The exact figures aren't available to Meltzer at this point, but Tyson is not doing this at a bargain basement deal. WCW, which basically stole the Dennis Rodman idea last year from WWF, which had planned to use Rodman first as Goldust's manager and then to set up the two as a tag team, was interested in Tyson if the deal wasn't solidified. Dr. Harvey Schiller, who oversees WCW operations for Turner, was talking with people at the Georgia Dome about negotiations for Oscar De La Hoya to appear at WCW, looking like they were falling through, and that the company was interested in trying to get Tyson. However, sources close to the situation claim the price tag for Tyson and King have negotiated with WWF may be way out of WCW's league. So a lot of information there, and obviously we'll talk about the Robin thing in 1 second. But if anything is too rich for Ted Turner's blood, that's got to be a lot of money.
Yeah, and a far difference from 97 WCW to it was watching. We're literally WWF was dying a year ago, almost 2 years ago, and then you're hearing this. It's insane, absolutely, but well worth the investment, I believe.
So go to Goldust and Rodman. So Rodman, obviously, we see him and Malone in 97 with WCW, and they do what they did there, and that's a memorable moment. Don't get me wrong. But I wonder how it would have played out with WWF. And maybe if you go back to, I guess, the feud with maybe Roddy Piper, right? Because WrestleMania 12 was 2 years prior. Or what was Goldust doing in 97? 98, we know he's doing whatever the hell he's doing now. Goldust is the artist formerly known as Goldust. Shit has fallen off the rails for Dustin Rhodes in 98. But
he is throwing shit at the wall to see if it sticks.
And it's rough and it's offensive. I'm not sure how he's still allowed to wrestle based on the things he was doing in 98, but we'll get there, of course. But imagine Rodman and Goldust. I guess fantasy book it for me. What would that look like for you? And what kind of feud would you book them in?
I mean, you're talking a big deal here. I think this would have been amazing for WWF. And I think nobody would have done it better than WWF. Of course, having Rodman pair up with the NWO was beautiful, right? Great storytelling, great storyline, but pairing him up with Goldust, the freak with the freak, this is a perfect tag team that could have fit right in with Kurgan and the oddities and the rest of the shenanigans going on, the headbangers, the Godwins. I think it would have been almost a breath of fresh air for the tag team division for WWF at the time, and it would have been awesome. I don't know. Obviously, you got to give them the titles. What are you going to do with them? Like, what? Fuck the New Age Outlaws at this point. give Rodman.
Would that be better as a WCW kid? Would that be better than what they did? I mean, he was in a main event level feud with Hogan, and like he was involved in main event level stuff. It feels like he would have been used as like a mid-carder, so it's almost a better situation in WCW.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right on the money with that, but I think the pairing is like crackers and cheese and wine. Like you would have Goldust and Rodman would have put some memorable television out there, and I think that was a cool thing that we kind of got. I know the Goldust stuff is rough, but we all know Dustin Rhodes is a man of business, and I think he would have done great, as we've seen. I mean, Goldust with Booker T down the line, some of the tag team shenanigans. He is a fantastic character. And I do want to slam it down. We are not canceling Goldust on this episode.
We are not doing that. Absolutely,
we are not.
I just want to say that with the world, the way the world goes, some of the shit we saw this episode, I was like,
I was shocked. Yeah, and I was like, holy shit, man. But it's done. We're over it. I think Goldust has made his amends.
It's not just him though. It's like not Goldust's fault. Everybody was doing whatever during 98. They were, like you said, throwing shit at the wall is an understatement. They were trying to push the envelope that was being pushed on a nightly basis, whether it be DX with what they were saying and doing. And people were, they were the live action South Park. That's what they were trying to be.
That is a very very fantastic analyst. That is dead on the money.
So let's talk more about Tyson here. And it is clear that King's interest is doing WrestleMania to make money with Tyson right now because he's banned from boxing on a show, which in the past has done tremendous pay-per-view buy rates. With the proliferation of pay-per-view shows, the WrestleMania name has meant less and less, to the point with no outside celebrity involvement in 1997 and a weak main event when it came to mainstream drawing power. There were 5 other wrestling shows that did many or more buys than the traditional jewel of the wrestling year, which is so crazy to read, especially with where we've just been seeing all the news popping around about how well the Rumble did. And WWE right now has all-time record profits. And you mentioned before, they were slowly dying. I mean, one of my favorite bands, As I Lay Dying, that was WWF from 95 until this moment in like late 97, early 1998, where holy shit, man, we might be in a world without Vince McMahon as the main promoter in Connecticut.
Yeah, and Tim Labisi hasn't even gone to jail yet. Vince is still thriving, going crazy. No, it's insane, man.
And Meltzer continues to talk about as far as what Tyson would mean to the product. And he said, from there, it depends on storyline and the public and the media's reaction. His appearance will garner tremendous media attention at the beginning, probably more negative than positive, but it will get WWF's name out there. WWF is attempting to build this year's WrestleMania around being sullied, soiled, and sleazy celebrities, which is a tactic that will only make wrestling's image as a whole even worse than it was. But that's the direction WWF has been going for months to begin with. WCW gained valuable points when it comes to perception through using Rodman, and to a much lesser extent, Kevin Green, Reggie White, and because Green was so enthusiastic in promoting his involvement in putting over pro wrestling. So WCW is using athletes. Dennis Rodman was eccentric. He was definitely out there, but he still, at the end of the day, was one of the best basketball players in the 90s with the Chicago Bulls and all of that. Yeah. But it's just interesting to see here. WWF's the reputation's only going to get worse throughout this year, and it's only going to get 10 times worse, which it's almost like you look at the chart of as their reputation gets worse, their profit soars, and anything they do just continues to catch fire. So it's almost like, let's continue to turn up the heat and offend people.
Yeah, and which is funny because their business model never really changes because they still are very controversial. They still are putting out a weird shit product for the most of the part, and their profits are huge right now. So, I mean, maybe this is where the drawing board officially begins for WWF / WWE in the long run.
Do you see Paul Heyman and ECW, what they were doing throughout the last couple of years, being the true influence for what's happening here? Do you see that it's full connection, or is it just the way culture was going?
I think it was the way culture was going. We do see glimpses of ECW and what Heyman has really brought to the table, but I think you really fucking hit the head on the nail. This is them attempting to be a like real life South Park mixed with pro wrestling, and it I don't know, it worked out for them, but a lot of this is cringy shit. So very interesting.
So continuing with Tyson, of course, we'll talk about him on Raw and everything that goes on with it. But Meltzer says, as we said before, Tyson is the biggest draw in the history of pay-per-view, but that drawing power is to see him in a fight, not to be a referee or participate in a worked farce of a match. And nobody really knows how much of that major drawing power is still intact after his last match, although no doubt there will be a curiosity drawing power and tons of media attention if he's involved as a participant. If WWF is able to sell the idea enough for the public that Tyson's match will or might be real, which he says will be 0% chance that it's going to be real, but try to convince people that it's going to be 100% a shoot or whatever, which like a similar like Brawl for All, which is like Vince Russo's idea later in that year. Or he's stuck on the biggest amount of money you can make here is going against Ken Shamrock, who is a UFC fighter, and that Meltzer won't shake that idea. We see it pop up time and time again in the newsletter that he wants Shamrock versus Tyson because he thinks that's the biggest moneymaker. But I can't disagree more. And I mean, I know we have the benefit of hindsight. I think what they did with Tyson was perfect.
No, listen, you are not wrong. I think it would have hurt the whole overall picture if they threw him in a program with Shamrock. Shamrock wasn't doing much. I mean, we just watched through 6 hours of wrestling in the last couple of days, and Shamrock's not doing too much. I mean, he's hot. People love him. He's doing good shit, but throwing him in an event with Tyson when you have the biggest fucking white meat babyface, Stone Cold Steve Austin, like you're crazy not to put Tyson with Austin. And HBK. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, Meltzer talks about if they do a work match where Ken Shamrock gets even a rub, he could lose to him, but still become what he said, quote, possibly the biggest star in the entire industry if they can somehow put together a match. And I know, again, like it's hard for us to even imagine that because we're living in a time where they never really fully pulled the trigger on Ken Shamrock and put him where he should be in the main event. It's hard to see. I understand Stone Cold's not quite Stone Cold yet, but it's easy to see the right thing to do is to put Tyson with Stone Cold, not Ken Shamrock.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and not trying to throw Shamrock any shade because he was a fantastic wrestler, fantastic worker. He's not even in the WWE Hall of Fame. He's in the Impact Hall of Fame, like it's and they got The Rock to come out and talk about Shamrock on there. They would never do that in WWE. It's just weird. It's just weird booking. Why would I don't understand the want to see Tyson and Shamrock.
I just think it's like the desire to see two styles clash between UFC, which was a initial first. I mean, they're in the first infancy of their existence, and a boxer doing a work match. I guess it has the same appeal as Conor McGregor and Floyd Mayweather, but doing it in WWE ring. Mayweather and Conor McGregor in a WWE ring. I mean, it would sell, guarantee people would watch it, but I don't think it would have the same appeal. Like we know if they box, it's real. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like none of that's really appealing to me.
Yeah. I think the timing for a Shamrock Tyson match, if it was a year earlier, people would have believed in it more. I think everybody would have called it bullshit at that point. And we would have seen a lot more of Tyson's weaknesses in that environment as well. And I don't think it would have been beneficial for either Tyson or WWF at the time. I think it would have been it would have been a wash. It would have been like, oh, cool, that happened. But it's not like you're talking about Tyson being in the main event, refereeing the match for Stone Cold, special enforcer. Sorry, being that guy, and it worked out great because we're still fucking talking about it at a high level now. You know what I mean? I don't think we would have been doing the same if they would have just threw him in a match with Ken Shamrock.
So he compares it to the Hogan situation at WrestleMania 1, where he said Hogan was already a super drawing card in pro wrestling, but not a name outside of pro wrestling. And getting the rub from Mr. T and Cyndi Lauper at WrestleMania 1, this is Meltzer's perspective, created this superstar past the world of wrestling. And he can't see, obviously, the future and what becomes of WWF in only a short period of months. But I mean, I guess the idea is there because who else is a bigger star in the world than Mike Tyson?
Yeah, you ain't wrong.
So we continue here as part of, obviously, WCW is trying to steal ideas from WWE. And at this point, Tyson was at one point expected to do a Nitro on 6/30/97 from Vegas and just do a cameo with the NWO shirt on as a heavily promoted big surprise. So Mr. Perfect and Raven debuted at that show, and they were planning to tease for the big surprise that would appear earlier in the show leading to Tyson. And after the Evander Holyfield fight, however, due to the fallout from the fight, Turner Broadcasting wanted nothing to do with Tyson, nor likely at the point would Tyson have wanted to still do it. Obviously, they're alluding to Tyson biting Holyfield's ear. So it never happened. We didn't get Tyson in WCW. And it's probably for the better because it almost makes the WWF buzz a little louder because he's never done it before.
No, and you got somebody coming off of white hot heat, coming from a different sport as well. I mean, that's a huge deal. Could you imagine? Not that it would have been a good idea, but like if they had Mark McGuire after the home run fiasco join in, and the people would have been all over that shit. They would have been like, hell yeah, man, I'm down to see some. Have him go out there with the bat and take out half the roster. It'd be great.
So also in the newsletter, we mentioned Hogan. There is a lot of rumors, and it's even on the WCW hotline and WWF hotline, that Hogan may be leaving to go back to WWF. So according to both WWF and WCW camps, rumors that Hogan jump doesn't appear to be taken seriously by either side at this point. Within wrestling, nobody appears to be reacting as if there's any strong possibility of it happening, although the rumors are everywhere and both sides will admit there's a very slim possibility based on circumstances totally out of control. Those circumstances are a TV show that USA Network is now airing with Hogan on it, and Hogan obviously is part of USA Network, and WWF at the time is on USA Network. It seems like a partnership would be imminent, but Meltzer continues to talking about potential 1998 matchups with Hogan in that roster. And you and I talked about butterfly effect. I'm not even going to talk about it as a good thing. How bad would this be for the 1998 and the growth that eventually would have happened if Hogan was to come over? Like, I don't think we see the emergence of The Rock. I mean, he feels like he's undeniable, but if a guy like Hogan comes in, he's taking somebody else's spot, and a big spot.
100%. It would have been crazy. He definitely would have not been, hanging out with Mosh and Thrasher. He wouldn't be, doing shit like that. So, I mean, Hogan's definitely got to steal the role. I don't know what maybe we would have seen a downfall of the Stone Cold Steve Austin character. Who knows? Maybe The Rock would have went to WCW. Maybe one of the guys would have left and tried to make fame somewhere else. And I wouldn't see Austin going to WCW, but who knows, man? It's one of those things you never really know what the hell would have happened. I think Bischoff would have loved to have a Stone Cold or a Rock in WCW at the time. And Hogan would have became an afterthought at that point, because that's what happened with WCW. Eventually becomes an afterthought, and WWF takes over the world.
Yeah, and Hogan, obviously, at the time, is still the biggest draw in the industry's history, so the allure is there. And WWF has this idea of creating a 3-hour Monday night block using Hogan's show to lead into Raw. And right now, Meltzer says it sounds interesting on the surface, but the lead-in right now is a very popular series that we all probably consume with the final minutes leading up to Raw. It's Walker, Texas Ranger, one of the most popular shows. Why would you touch that? Don't touch that.
No, Hogan can't fuck with Chuck Norris.
So just a fascinating thing to think about. We also talked about 96, where there was a that eventually he would go back to WWF. And I think the tease was always there. It eventually happened in 2002 when WCW was no longer a thing. But I think the relationship between Hogan and Vince was always trying to be reunited, but WCW was always willing to pay him a little bit more.
Yeah. And who's going to bat an eye at that? Of course, you'd take the money.
So we got Vader, who was fined 50 dinar, which is equivalent to $166 American, for the deal in Kuwait, where he roughed up the Good Morning Kuwait TV show host for asking if wrestling was fake. He's still facing possible civil action in the country, where the host is asking for 120,000 dinar, which is equivalent to $398,000. So Vader, if you guys remember this piece of news, he was on the KUSA News in Denver on 1-2 with tears rolling down his face, saying that he was just doing what he was told and he's not the character he plays on TV, and his TV persona is all an act. He thought the host was in on the angle. He was referred to the newscast as Big Van Vader, and all the clips shown of him were in WCW. Do you remember this, where Vader beat the shit out of the TV host and got fined about this?
I remember it. I've watched it back several times in the last 10 years. He was not light on that guy. He slapped the shit out of him. And rightfully so. He was just trying to protect his business. I think, I don't know, a lot of this gets lost in translation, but I think when you got to stand up for your work, man, you damn right you can throw some slaps.
So WWF started a training camp in 1998. I want to just read you some of the names that are training here. Dory Funk and Pat Patterson are the head trainers. At the camp right now, Mark Merrow, Darren Drozoff, a.k.a. Droz, Tiger Ali Singh, Randy Blackbeard, Ahmed Johnson, Mark Henry, Steve Blackman, Matt Bloom, who he calls a 6'7", 370-pound former football player at Pittsburgh who had some training by Killer Kowalski, Sean Stasiak, Sean Morley, Adam Copeland, Kurgan the Integrator, and Taka Michinoku. There's some fucking fire names in there.
Yeah.
Adam Copeland is just thrown in there. Mark Henry,
randomly.
Draws, like these guys are all, 70% of them are on the main roster within a year.
Yeah, listen, Sean Stasiak had a lot of potential, man. And if he was booked better, he probably would have been a fucking star. It's insane, man. Kurgan could have got the F out.
So Michinoku becomes a pretty valuable piece here. And I know the light heavyweight championship will be brought in and crowned at WrestleMania 14. So they want Michinoku to do more mat wrestling, so he doesn't have to do as many flying moves per match. And he's also in for the Funks to learn his English for the interview skills. So reports are that Copeland, a.k.a. Edge, and Morley, a.k.a. Val Venus, have been the most impressive. Several of them are going to work a WWF house show on 1-9 and 110 independent show in New Hampshire. And thus far, the camp is being considered a big success. Run along the lines of the All Japan Dojo, where Funk used to train younger wrestlers, and some of them the best workers of this generation. Dude, Copeland and Sean Moore, they're huge parts of the Attitude Era that are just like tossed here, and they're in their training in 1998, right here. first beginning of the year.
Yeah, the first I'm hearing about this too, which is crazy. I mean, obviously, one becomes possibly one of the biggest names in pro wrestling ever, and the other one becomes the biggest laughing point of pro wrestling ever. But still, I mean, listen, Val Venus, you can talk all the shit you want. He was entertaining. He was great in the ring. It was always fun to watch him. I always enjoyed watching Val Venus matches. I got the shtick. I thought it was goofy, but I thought his in-ring work was always talented. And obviously Edge is fucking Edge and still killing it to this day at this year's Royal Rumble.
Right.
Insane, man.
So the Headbangers, and the only reason I mentioned them, they're of course a tag team in 1998. They were on Regis and Kathy Lee on January 5th to surprise one of the kids in the new Cosby Show who was said to have been a big fan. Well, they got the embarrassment when the kid, who didn't seem at all thrilled meeting the Headbangers, was asked who his favorite tag team was, and he said Bret Hart's team. So, all right, well, you know, it's obviously they're trying to make media tour, and not all the main stars can be everywhere. And Bret Hart's not even with WWF at this time. They couldn't have brought someone better to Regis and Kathy Lee. That's a pretty big show that was going on. You have the Headbangers there. Come on,
yeah. Can you put like? Here we are. We got the Headbangers from WWF, World Wrestling Federation, and it just falls flat. I would be disappointed, and I was a WWF fan. I would have been like, why?
So to end the newsletter here, we have Shawn Michaels. We talked about controversy going on. This was also in Chicago on 12/26. He talks about what happened, got really racial with the fan. This is Shawn Michaels talking, and I'm not going to read the quote. You guys can go to the newsletter and check it out. But Shawn Michaels says he wouldn't wrestle unless a guy was thrown out. Some thought it was all an angle as the guy was throwing out, but he came back after the match, and his girlfriend, who Michaels was also insulting, was brought backstage. So he calls the guy a whole bunch of names. Not going to say what he said here, but Shawn Michaels, he seems fucking just fed up with being here, and he's right here. I mean, we're about to see him break his back at the Royal Rumble and then wrestles WrestleMania 14. Then he's gone for 4 years, so we won't see him. He seems just absolutely done with everything. He seems tired. He seems sick. He seems old. And he's old. He's tired. Works with children.
Listen, man. Yeah, you can tell. Like, shit'll rile people up. I'm. You got to send me these quotes because I really want to hear it. But it's insane. I could see Michaels being a prick though, for whatever reason, and it doesn't really matter. I mean, he's the head honcho. I do miss these 12/26 Chicago shows. It was always 12. The last time I seen Owen Hart wrestle was his last match was in Chicago. It was one of these 12/26 little house shows. It was fantastic. But yeah, fucking Shawn Michaels, man.
So in the January 19th newsletter, we get into it, and Meltzer has more clarity about what Mike Tyson will be doing at WrestleMania. And the main thing to pull apart here is that Tyson's going to appear on most, if not all, of Raw television shows leading up to create a storyline climaxing at WrestleMania, which is a huge deal for a celebrity. A lot of times they'll announce they'll be there, but Tyson has nothing else going on because he can't box. He can't do anything else. So they're probably paying him huge money and say, just travel from show to show with us and help build this up. I think that's what really got it over, because Tyson was on TV weekly. Yeah,
100%. I mean, even when they're cutting to him at the Rumble, like just seeing them all smiling and giddy, sitting up there with Vince and Shane, like you love it, man. And it really sells the deal. It was great.
So Meltzer finally has some money figures, and he says whatever the true money figure is for the angle, he is believed to be $4 million or more on paper. It will take a creative storyline to make him worth that kind of money when it comes to buys. And he says the recent Starrcade, which was the biggest pay-per-view money-wise of the past 6 years, only grossed about $6.5 million total in a role other than a participant in the match. So I guess he's just comparing that as far as making money and revenue goes. It's more of an investment. The biggest pay-per-view of all time at that point made $6.5 million only a few years prior. But I think WWF knew they weren't going to make their money back. This was just a long game to become a bigger entertainment entity, and Mike Tyson was a key to that.
Yeah, Vince loved dishing out bucks to get noticed. I mean, even with the Super Bowl ad, we're seeing it all. He made nothing off that Super Bowl ad except for more people coming in and viewing the product because, man, that commercial was crazy. Maybe we should watch Monday. You know, it was one of those type deals. And same thing with Tyson, man. You got a draw of a star in one of the most controversial years of his life. I mean, the biting the ear, doing all that, like getting banned from boxing. It's a hot topic, and it was hotter because we didn't have a full, you know, it took us 20 hours to get onto AOL to go read our news and shit like that. So we weren't really like as gun ho as we are nowadays, reading stuff online, and it's insane.
So the other thing he talks about, as far as I guess making bang for your buck and the value that they're getting out of this $4 million they're spending on Mike Tyson, he says the strong media hype will reestablish the WrestleMania name as the crown jewel in the wrestling calendar, as the event clearly lost its luster over the past 2 years to the mainstream without the celebrity involvement that put the name over in the first place. He also says it will reestablish WWF as the brand name for pro wrestling after a year where WCW got most of the mainstream headlines. One would think the Raw rating should get a significant boost on January 19th with the promised Tyson appearance, particularly since one would expect something noteworthy involving him at the Rumble. Whether frequent Tyson appearances will continue to build the Monday ratings because the storyline advances or burn him out before the big payoff if he can't pull his Raw off well is the big question. It's definitely a valid question, but this is a huge piece of news right here because at this moment in time, WCW is the guy in the lead. And WWF is chasing. So this is all from the perspective of someone who's trying to punch from underneath and catch up. This isn't the same WWF, WWE that we know nowadays. They are trying to catch up. And this is a huge move and an investment. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money. And sometimes you have to lose money to make money before you make money.
100%. And I also think that they seen the little kid in Mike Tyson and they knew it was going to go perfect. Because like every time they showed Mike Tyson, like he's glowing. When he rips the shirt at Mania, you could see like the happiness in his little child like mind. Like you see it in his eyes. It's like, I got the Steve Austin shirt. You love it. Like you're fucking here for it. I would kill to be in Tyson's shoes this year.
So the expected negative media articles have followed with Tyson being involved with WWF, and they have got 4 easy targets according to Meltzer: Mike Tyson, Don King, Vince McMahon, and the entity known as pro wrestling. So WWF expected it, and maybe based on its new image, wants it, and quite frankly, deserves most of it. Mark Kriegel on the January 9th New York Daily News compared Tyson and pro wrestling to the last act of the 1956 boxing movie classic Requiem for a Heavyweight. Unlike many reporters, Kriegel called McMahon the high priest of low life. Man, so we got a whole bunch of bad press, but again, this is what they want. This Vince McMahon wants to be kind of painted in this light and be sort of this leader of this anti-culture type of entertainment that becomes, catches fire. Without Vince taking these risks and pushing the envelope, I don't think wrestling reaches the heights it does.
Yeah, we're slowly getting to like the all-time highs, and it wouldn't even slightly reach that point without this Tyson piece. I guarantee it.
So some of the other stuff from a New York Post columnist and a TV sports writer, Wallace Matthews, doing a similarly negative column, called Tyson a hypocritical, whining, self-pitying little puke for doing the wrestling involvement. Oof. We also have the wrestling comments were limited to calling the WWF, and I quote, an outlaw organization of negative redeeming values that is rife with drug abuse, fosters at worst racial stereotypes, and glorifies gang violence. And Matthews was asked, why are his arenas filled with 14-year-olds if it's adult-oriented entertainment? These are valid questions, but these are all the things that Vince was striving for. This is what gets people to watch, because this is exactly, as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, I see this type of stuff and it become like, oh, I want to watch this. I have to sneak watching it. And it just becomes this like energy that it's like, you have to be there to enjoy it. And that's kind of what catches fire.
Yeah, it was everything. It was taboo. It was very, very close to real life. I mean, you're talking about like I see the comparisons with the glorifying gang violence, the Savio Vega stuff, but it all was so that part of the time. Vince was just doing what was happening in real life, but inside the ring. That's what got it over so big.
So we also have this famous Jim Cornette setting up the cage promo. If you've ever listened to Jim Cornette talk, there was a time and place where they're having a hard time setting up the cage, and it took a long time. So Jim Cornette got on the mic where he just talked about and cut a 5-minute promo in NWA history. It's glossed over here, but this is one of the more famous Jim Cornette moments where he kills time because he knows that he didn't want the fans revolting and losing interest while they were trying to, as you and I know, working the independent scene, seeing cages be built.
Yeah,
take a long time in the independents. It also takes a long time with a machine like WWF behind it, because you got to build the cage.
I have not heard of this at all. This is all news to me, so I'm very excited. I need to go back and check this out.
Oh, he just essentially, this is just Jim Cornette in a nutshell. We're thinking on his feet. He just sits in the ring for 5 minutes and talks about whatever he wants to talk about, because they just gave him a mic. They needed to kill time. They didn't think the cage would take as long as it was to build. They didn't want just the light sitting down while it's being built. They wanted something happening. Who's the guy who put the mic in the hand? I think of two guys, Jim Cornette and Paul Heyman.
We didn't get the corny pipe bomb. It was just him blabbing about NWA and how prestigious it was. I'm okay with that. That's cool.
Speaking of NWA, we saw the appearance on Raw, and we'll definitely talk about that with Jeff Jarrett and all that. But right now, it's becoming a weird topic, according to Meltzer. It says Jonathan Holiday, a former wrestler in Oregon and Calgary, who have been promoting a few shows in California, sent legal letters to, among other people, the NWA headed by Dennis Coralluzzo and Howard Brody, the WWF, for using the NWA name and even Pro Wrestling Illustrated. He claims legal rights to the name, but the trademark NWA name from the 50s is controlled by Coralluzzo and Brody. Holiday is claiming to have the support of Lou Thez, Don Owen, and Bob Geagle. And it's true that Thez is supporting Holiday, but other than its first champion, other than being the most influential players in the early history of NWA, we're not exactly sure what that legally means. Anyway, at this point, WWF seems to be ignoring it all and going on with its angle. It sounds like that's exactly WWF's motivation with everything. Ignore it all and push forward.
Goddamn, pal.
We also have both Severn and Shamrock appearing on the CBS show Nash Bridges on 1/9. So a little bit of. Do you remember Nash Bridges?
I absolutely remember Nash Bridges, and the only reason why I was even slightly remotely interested in it because it had Nash in it, and I was thinking Kevin Nash. So I was like, oh hell yeah, this is it's just to tie it all back to wrestling. This is what I was going for because I was obsessed at this point.
So we also have mention of WWF using more sleazy celebrities at Mania for their bad image. And right now, Meltzer says the only one we know that is accepted thus far is Pete Rose, who will probably be a timekeeper for one of the main events. Most of any celebrity with a seedy reputation short of O.J. Simpson will have been contacted. So Pete Rose, I don't think appears at WrestleMania 14. He's at WrestleMania 15 for the first one, I believe. I don't think he's at 14.
But 99 is the
15. He gets Tombstone in the chicken suit. That's
well. Isn't he in the Rumble in 99 too, or is that in 2000? I know he comes out and Kane comes out again and he fucks him over.
It's very
Pete Rose. Yeah. Pete Rose was game as fuck. I love Pete Rose.
All-time hits leader, whether people like it or not. So
hell yeah.
4,285 hits. That's my man right there.
Woo.
All right. So Gorilla Monsoon made his first appearance at a taping since his near-fatal heart attack. He is said to lost 50 to 60 pounds through modifying his diet. And at least this point, there are no plans for him to have a heart transplant, although he maybe at some point require heart surgery. So Gorilla Monsoon he'll be on TV, I think, a little bit at the end of this year, as not as a on-screen character, but he'll be on our screen, seeing him kind of break up some fights. But Gorilla Monsoon, we're seeing this is kind of the tail end of his life.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Such a shame.
And then the final piece of the newsletter here, and despite rumors to the contrary, there are no plans at all about bringing Yokozuna back. And Meltzer says it'd almost be impossible to use him because he can't get a license due to his weight and his irregular heartbeat. So we think 96 is when we see the last of Yokozuna as far as an in-ring competitor. He is super heavy, not able to really move around well. So Yokozuna will pass away shortly after this. I mean, I think he passed away in 99, so a year from now, he'll be unfortunately gone. So
crazy, man.
All right, so let's get our fix. Let's talk about WWF Monday Night Raw from January 2nd from New Haven, Connecticut, the New Haven Coliseum. Let's get our fix. Hogan, we're going to see your face for a second. You're not coming back to 98. Just stay where you are. All right, man.
That's Hogan telling you, like, I'm staying with WCW, brother.
I got that fat cash, bro. All right, so right now they are heading into the Rumble, and the ratings are up as Raw got a 3.0 and a 3.7 for a near 3.4 total, while Nitro got a 4.6 and 4.1 for a 4.3 total for this Raw and Nitro alike. So these are the ratings. Those are amazing, amazing ratings as far as total viewers go, and they're only going to get higher. Like we're going to get to a point where, I mean, people pop over a little bit over 1 million. SmackDown gets 2.5 million, and people are like over the moon about it. We're going to see those numbers get absolutely shattered throughout the rest of this year.
Yeah, they triple that shit.
Yeah. I don't know if we'll ever get to that point again, because, again, there's so many options in the world of what we can watch. Like, streaming didn't exist, so you weren't just flipping through the channels. Like, someone could just watch, as I'm doing right now on Disney Plus, rewatching Boy Meets World. Like, they couldn't do that. I'm doing it
No,
now.
absolutely. And that's what I mean. Like internet was so clunky back then still. It would take like 40 minutes to load a 30-second video. You know, like it was ridiculous. So the fact that this was a time to be alive, this was like the one of those last bubbles of that. You wanted to be on TV as a fan, you wanted to be in the crowd, get your sign on TV. You wanted to be there for the action. We never get to really I don't think we'll ever be able to relive this era of hype for pro wrestling ever again, man.
Yeah, and we talked about with 96 where you had to literally watch it unless you had your VCR set up to tape it on time, and you had to be able to watch it, and you get a call from your friends and say turn it over to this channel and this is happening, and it just is a different time because now with wrestling, I mean, following this, I have wrestling right now that's on demand. I'm going to be watching a whole bunch of wrestling after this. You and I are reliving this. This was at the time. If you wanted to watch an old Raw, you used to have it on your VHS where you'd pop it out and be like, "Oh, I remember taping this," and you ran that into the ground because that's how you owned it.
Yeah, to a point where the tape would be all like you see the color at the top of the screen because it's like melting away from you, burning through it all the time.
I had this 1999 SmackDown tape that I just taped it from a random. It wasn't like a special episode, but I wore that to the ground because that was the only thing as far as wrestling goes. I had other Coliseum videos and other tapes, but I wanted to watch like a SmackDown just so if I was homesick, and it would be that same exact SmackDown over and over again. And those matches are just like burned into my brain and burned into my memory.
That I have the exact same thing with the 2000 Royal Rumble going into that Mania, and they're both taped on the same tape. I mean, it was one of the best VHSs, got me through years of fandom.
So this show on Raw, and they open up the year with one intention and one intention only. You just let Stone Cold run rampant all over the roster. And this whole Raw is built around that, where Stone Cold is like all over the place and absolutely destroying the roster. And one thing is made clear: he's better than everybody, and he's coming for the championship, and he doesn't care who's in his way. The writing's on the wall. Like betting odds for Stone Cold at this time, we don't have them available in front of us, but you can guarantee he's a strong favorite. Nobody's even close.
Yeah, I give them a lot of credit. I loved the pagers going off, and you look down, you see the 316, and it was your ass. And like, listen, it was at the time, pagers were one of the biggest things too. And like, it was everybody's cell phone at the time. Like you got a pager. My dad had like 4 of them. I remember the pager gimmicks. It was great, but this was really tight, good storytelling. Cause you'd see like, you know, D'Lo Brown look at his page. I'm like, oh fuck! Austin be behind him, like, come on, kid, and start beating the shit out of him. It was good storytelling, man.
What is so good about this whole thing is that it's full, and they did this a lot in 1998. Everything was circular. They start the show a certain way, and they weave it throughout, and then they end the show a certain way with everything being wrapped up. And they even did that really well throughout the early 2000s, where you'd have that opening segment, and sometimes you get sick of it. Whoever the heel champion was would tie it up. They'd set up the match for the end of the night, and then lead you into next week. I think that's really what's missing from not even just WWE product. We're missing that from all wrestling at large, where they leave you hanging, wanting more. There's not enough cliffhanging things where you have to tune in next week. And I'm not sure why that model disappeared and why that it has lost its art in wrestling. Yeah. But here it's perfect, where they lead in with Austin. You know it's on from the beginning. He's going to be causing chaos all night. You mentioned the beepers and kicking ass. He's going to attack people before they can get to them. He knows they will team up against him in the Rumble, so they better watch their pagers as he's coming for them. That's how they open the show before we get to the first match. It's crazy. It's
hot. Yeah, goosebumps, man. And I want to go back real quick and just talk about it because, I mean, even on Dynamite this week, like when Wardlow came out, you could have literally cut it at him at the entrance ramp with the smirk on his face. We didn't need to see him go in the ring and start attacking Samoa. It took away from the finish. You know, we needed that cliffhanger. It would have been so much great, and then it would have been Excalibur going, we're going to hear more from Wardlow next week. Stay tuned. Like, you would have been like, all right, now I got to fucking watch next week no matter what. There's ways to do it where you'd be like, fuck, that's a good cliffhanger. I'm down. And it wasn't terrible by any means, but wrestling is missing that very much in depth and just across the whole fucking spectrum.
So the opening match here is Ken Shamrock, who Meltzer is obsessed with wrestling, like Tyson. He's taking on Farouk here, and this is not going to draw a whole bunch of money as far as TV ratings go, but two solid fucking workers here. Ken Shamrock, it's clear he is very, very well pushed in 1998. And from the beginning, like, you can just tell he's one of their main guys, feuding with The Rock. You can really tell he's gunning for that IC title. He is just the presence of Ken Shamrock. You can tell he's well thought of.
Yeah, and it's just a presence. I mean, he was one of those. I mean, even in my childhood, I was like, I would never mess with Ken Shamrock. Instantly go buy his figure. Instantly played him in all the games. WWF Attitude on PlayStation 1. I swear to God, I play it all the time to this day, and it's a terrible game. But you got kind of you were able to play these games, like these matches out. It was awesome.
All right, so lead us through this match. Tell us what happened here and some key highlights. And did you like what they did with the finish?
Yeah, you know, we've got more storytelling than we did wrestling. Obviously, we're building some shit up here, and it's some good stuff. I mean, we got the Rock kind of defuncting from the nation. We're balls deep into the storyline right now, and it's doing good. And you know, the Rock doesn't come out to the ring right away. Shamrock and Farouk having a very like clean, good wrestling match, enjoying the shit out of it for the most part. But then, you know, they cut to the Rock on the ramp. Shit's going crazy. Like everybody's getting taken back by it. But I think Shamrock looks like $1 million here. I think Farouk looks so good. It was a good kickoff to the show. Yeah, just awesome. And you get, you know, Farouk, you got Kama. They're sitting there arguing with the Rock after the match, and Austin comes out and just starts stunning people left and right. The pandemonium that you would expect and love from this. And this was my favorite part of this whole Raw was these random points of Austin coming out, boom, boom, kick, stunner, and you just pop. Like, how can you not? It was fantastic, man. But really good stuff. Ken Shamrock gets the win. It was fun, man. I really enjoyed it. It made me miss kind of seeing Farouk in these kind of matches, and same thing with Shamrock. I forgot how awesome of wrestlers they both were. Good storytelling too. It was really well done.
And they're setting the seeds for like trying to get the leadership of the nation in control. And obviously Farouk will be the odd man out when the Rock takes control, but the nation's going to be a huge storytelling point throughout 98 as well. But yeah, this ending here, protected finish with the ankle lock. Nobody gets out of it. They're really making sure that the ankle lock, once he locks it in, he's like a rabid pit bull. He's locked in. You kind of have to wait till he's done. And fuck, man, like big win over Farouk too. Like I said, Shamrock is being pushed pretty strongly. And then of course, Shamrock gets stunned. Rock gets stunned as well, which was awesome to see the Rock take the stunner, which is, it's funny to know the history between the two of them. Obviously they feuded throughout 97, but there's so much more history with the Rock and Austin, and this one-off stunner feels like it means so much.
Yeah, it just I mean, throughout these 3 episodes, you see that it's so cool to go back and kind of, we're watching the not necessarily the birth of it, but the very early stages. Like, these guys are building the bases of the pyramids right now, you know, and it was like, it's awesome we lived through it. Not only that, but to go back and be able to watch them doing it. I love watching the Rock and Austin's their chemistry together, and you see it even this early in the stages. It's fucking awesome, man.
So we get exclusive footage from the Hell in a Cell, which was a huge thing for people. Like, you know, for me, I wasn't able to watch the pay-per-view, so being able to see things from Bad Blood was amazing for me. So seeing the highlights, they used to show the still images, and then you'd have to buy WWF magazine to see the other pictures. That was also fun. I remember they used to have the 3 squares of each like moments of the match with the finish. That was for people that didn't have that, having a subscription to WWF magazine. I obviously knew the finishes of the matches, but without the internet, not having access to it, seeing pictures and seeing what their attire looked like as a kid that didn't have pay-per-views and didn't have them ordered for me, that was also seeing them on Raw was a huge thing. So that was exciting to see here.
No, we didn't have adult money. It was hard to go, Mom, Dad, we got to buy this $50 pay-per-view. They were like, fuck off.
Oh man. So we have Cornette coming out to the ring and with a commercial. And then obviously Cornette's still in the ring when they come back. And Cornette has put his money where his mouth is. And he brought in the president and vice president of NWA and brags about its history. This is similar to that same promo we cut, which I'll send you, by the way, while the cage is being built. I remember this happening, and I remember it meaning absolutely nothing. Right? Like if this happened, if this happened now, I'd probably be a huge fan. I know the lineage, and I'm sure it popped a lot of longtime fans. And there was a certain sect of fandom that was like, hell yeah, man, pay respect to the homage of wrestling. And I understand the function of it because wrestling is moving so far away from the traditionalist ideals of what it was.
Yeah.
Jeff Jarrett defeated Barry Windham for the NWA title. This was short. And the thing that really surprised me, and again, it's the Attitude Era. Vince Russo is behind the scenes doing stuff. So,
bro,
the fact that they are doing this match and they're trying to bring back traditional wrestling. Of course, they did hip tosses and arm drags and traditional wrestling, But then the match ends with the same shady shit that Jim Cornette's against. And I guess this is what makes him a heel. He hits Barry with the racket, and Double J gets the win. They put the title on Jarrett. Again, this title, you want to talk about titles that mean nothing? Like we talk about AEW and everyone's bitching and moaning about the All Atlantic Championship. This championship really meant nothing. This is might as well be that championship that Hawk got from the prop of Young Rock. This is the same exact thing. This was tossed on Jarrett. Who cares? I mean, it's even more meaningless right now because on top of this, it was just a segue for Austin to stun them, and rightfully so. Austin's the most over thing on here, so both these guys got stunned. Who fucking cares? I mean, the NWA thing's going to continue. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, it was crazy to me.
Oh, this was the fucking biggest snooze fest for me as a kid. This is when I would change the channel and watch Nitro. I don't even think I could because this was on an hour. No, Nitro started an hour earlier. Nitro was after 3 hours. We were rocking and rolling by this point. So yeah, I see Jim Cornette come out when I'm 9. I'm like, fuck this guy. You know, I switch the channel right. I see NWA. I'm like, fucking boring. Don't give any shit about any of it. It was a who could give a flying fuck moment. But rewatching it, I was actually astonished that they did this. I was astonished to see the NWA title. I have no recollection of this from a kid because I probably changed the channel. I probably was like, fuck these guys. But I thought it was cool. Jim Cornette sounds like the nerdiest fucking dweeb in the world, though, when he comes out and gets on comedy. Well, the NWA's been around since 1847, and it's so good. Like nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit. And as you said, it was a lead up to get Stone Cold out there and stun. This storyline is absolutely. I can picture Vince Russo in the back and Jim Cornette fighting about it, probably like. Bro, we're not going to bring back the NWA title. Man, it's prestigious. What are you talking about? You're a dipshit. Like, listen, bro, nobody wants this. They want to see Mike Tyson. It's going to be, I can hear it all day long. But I loved it. I thought it was fucking great. It was a shit match, but it was a great storyline.
Through the lens of history, this falls in the same category as when they brought in the Luchadors from AAA into the Royal Rumble 97. Also with when they brought in the minis throughout 98. I think it was 98. Yeah, they brought the minis in. Or 97. There's mini wrestlers happening in both WCW and WWF, so forgive the year if I'm missing it. But anyway, this is like sort of just this one-off that didn't feel like it was integrated in the rest of the roster, and that's why it just fell flat for me. I mean, I understand it almost is Forbidden Door type of shit. It really is. Like if you really pull the thread and it's like it's Forbidden Door type of stuff, where to see the NWA title, I'm sure there's a dude 35 years old in 1998 was like, this is the coolest shit ever. I'm seeing my championship and being defended on here, and this is what I grew up with.
It was Jim Cornette.
1998 casual fan, they're like, I don't know.
Back in my day,
it also was funny. Jeff Jarrett gets awarded a title. Is there anything more Jeff Jarrett than just being awarded a title that's meaningless? It's so Jeff
just
Jarrett.
Showing up at the company, probably not even booked. He's just like, yeah, man. He's like, I'll get you guys on the internet. They're like, fuck, give him a title, goddammit.
I got an idea. Let's give me the title. How's that sound?
Let's start booking house shows. I love it. Give him the NWA title.
Man, all right. So we got Ken Shamrock in the back talking about the Rumble, and he wants to get it on with Austin. Man to man, I die. This was an interesting promo because they were obviously Austin is the baddest guy at this point. He's going around stunning everybody. He's probably going to give about 14 stunners on this Raw. But Ken Shamrock is being booked as this guy who's eventually going to rise up, and there seems to be a money feud of potential between Ken Shamrock and Austin, and never really happens. Ken Shamrock and Austin really only link up when Ken Shamrock is a lackey in 99 in the corporation. He never quite gets to that moment of being to the main event. But I see the potential in Shamrock. I just don't think they were ready to accept it because he was Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle before they were there. Like he was the real athlete that was ready to transcend, and wrestling just wasn't quite ready for it. And I think his predecessors and also the people that came after Shamrock all sort of benefited from what Shamrock paved the way for. Like a guy like Lesnar was able to benefit from what Shamrock did to bridge that gap and build this trend of UFC guys coming over to WWF.
Absolutely. I just think they didn't know what to do with him. It was too early for them to put him over. And by the time he was somebody that should be put over in the bigger title picture, Austin was fucking, 6 states away, already running ship. I'll meet you in Vegas, man. Like that's what we got out of Austin. He was like, all right, whatever. Like I understand it, but Shamrock was always an attraction. He was always a hell of a worker, great in the ring, always fun to watch. I love Ken Shamrock, man.
So we have a sultry Sunny coming out here to lead the way, and it's weird to see Sunny in this state here. She was the original kind of diva situation, and obviously her life has fallen apart and by decisions she's made. So it's weird to see her at this state, because she was the apple of every young man's eye at this point. She was she certainly was the original diva. I mean, Sable took and ran what she started. Even at the end of this year, in the summer of '98, Sable kind of takes control, but Sunny is pretty much, she's roll tide here.
Yeah, no, it's like you said, it's crazy to see her here, all dialed up, doing her thing, and seeing where it went. It's very bittersweet.
So we'll go through this match quick. Skull and 8-Ball defeated Recon and Sniper. The Truth Commission versus DOA. This is another type of match that you talk about channel changers as a kid. I had the Disciples Apocalypse figures. I think I had a Recon figure if they came out with one. I think there's a Truth Commission Bone Cruncher.
I think
that
so.
might have just been. Maybe I'm thinking of Kurgan's Truth Commission figure. Either way, these guys the match is pretty much nothing, and this is sort of what the tag division was in '98. And New Age Outlaws were the cream of the crop, but there's a reason why Cactus Jack and Terry Funk are challenging for the titles at WrestleMania, and none of these guys are.
Yeah, and listen, the highlight of this match, just so everybody knows, is seeing Don Callis come out with hair and a diamond on his forehead.
Hell yes.
Getting on commentary doesn't sound anything like the Don Callis that we're familiar with. He sounds very just young and nerdy. Like, I don't know. I never got with this character either. It was like I knew about the Jackal, I knew with Kurgan stuff, but it never clicked. I was never into him. Like you see him now, you hear him now, he's got presence, damn it. But here he's just like that guy that's with fucking Kurgan,
All right, so after this, we have DX and Triple H in a wheelchair being pushed down by China. Lead us through this segment. This is a huge deal where, they were getting ample TV time to get themselves over, and DX was a favorite part for everybody. And when they came on, people were paying attention.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very strong segment and a very heartfelt one, because it revolved our good. I'll give him a legend at this point, because he is a goddamn legend. But Owen Hart, you get Triple H telling Owen, you've gone from the hunter to the hunted. I forgot the but they were going back and forth, and they're doing their shtick, as DX does. We got plenty of wood left, ladies. They kind of filled that gap of getting Val Venus pops before Val Venus came in, and then once Val Venus came in, they kind of died off the dick jokes. But it was good. I thought it was fun. It's weird to see Triple H, because I was a bigger fan of DX after Shawn Michaels left. Like I got that there was the revolutionary trio of him, Hunter, and China, but when Triple H took the helm of it all, I think that's when it really took more character to it, and it was beyond the Dick and Fark jokes that DX was. So this is a very I don't know. It was an okay segment.
Which leads us right into Owen Hart taking on Savio Vega. If we want to continue it here, tell us about this match. It was quick, but this is
it was quick.
Talented guys.
Yeah, come on. You can't watch an Owen Hart match and not really enjoy it. There was a lot of good back and forth. A very stiff Thez press right off the bat too. I seen the way Vega hit him, and it looked like neither one of them were expecting the impact of it, but it was good. DX is there kind of doing the shenanigans at the top of the ramp, and Triple H is rocking the crutches. Is he in the wheelchair for this? He was going back and forth. He was in wheelchair, crutches.
He has a shoot dislocated knee. He just got hurt at a house show where his whole knee got dislocated, so he's out of action. So they
mentioned it on commentary. Jim Ross is like, his knee's all fucked up. He's going to meet with the specialist next week. That's how you know where they are with this, because there's a match going on and they're talking about Triple H's knee, and it was a good match though. It wasn't bad. It was fun. I miss seeing Owen wrestle. He's very gritty here too. He's not the goofy Owen Hart yet. He's not the Blue Blazer Owen Hart. This is like right before that. He's got a bit of an attitude to him, and I love it. We'll see more in the next the follow-ups episodes, but this was it was cool to see Vega and Owen kind of rocking it out, man.
Yeah, not to belabor the point, but this is another example of when a guy's injured, leave him on TV, he can really work on his character. Triple H is out for not not for a full year, but he's out for a few months here. And if you would have taken him off TV, he would have lost a lot of the momentum. But they continue to have him in segments, have him at ringside. This was huge for him to continue to build his momentum. And he's only a year away. I mean, this summer, he'll be winning the IC title from The Rock in a ladder match. So huge moment. I mean, at the time, the Triple H went from where he was in 96 to now. It's remarkable. So we have a disheveled Paul Bearer coming out right after this. He absolutely looks like he's unkept. And he's talking, he hopes HBK destroys Taker at the Rumble. He curses the ground he walks on and the air he breathes. He also hates him, and he lost Kane because of him. He has searched everywhere but cannot find him. Paul Bearer took care of Kane for so many years, and I'm begging you, my son Kane, come home.
My son Kane! I miss Paul Bearer, so
it's crazy. Like, this is so well received, and it really is because of the character. And I think this is like speaks to what wrestling can be, larger than life. And think about everybody involved in this. Paul Bearer is such a legendary character and voice in wrestling.
It was goofy.
Taker and Kane, man, they're fucking awesome. Like, this whole storyline, it's so goofy, it's so weird, but it's like it works because of the guys in it.
Yeah, no, I mean, Bear comes walking out to the ring, looking like he just woke up in his Buick, you know. He's just sitting there, like, I love the distinctness of a Paul Bear promo though, because nobody drags out the words like Bear did, and I lit up. This was. Like these first episodes we do of these shows, like the nostalgia hits so hard. I love Paul Bear so fucking much. This was fun, man. He looked like shit. This is great.
We're getting all natty. Paul Bearer, he's all natural. He's not all dolled up. Not dyed.
No,
he's just
no paint, no nothing.
He's mourning after Paul Bearer. Like that's not who I remember from last night. He's not wearing any makeup.
It was good. I dug it, man.
All right, so we also have another Austin stunner before we move to the next match. Austin stuns Mark Henry in the locker room. If you're counting at home, that's 4 stunners on the night. Let's continue here. Not much to talk about in this match. Mark Marrow took on Tom Brandi, got the win with the TKO. Austin does come out after the match and stuns Marrow with a stunner, and then stands there and also stuns Brandi. And Austin and Sable kind of lock eyes and grin. This is something we never really quite get. And I'm glad they didn't go with it. Yeah, because that would be so. It's the wrong move to have 2 your hottest act next to each other. I'm like, let's get the hot broad and let's put her with the hottest act in wrestling. Not good. No. I
think it would have killed the momentum on both of their sides. I think they did whatever they did. It was fine. Don't fuck with the formula.
Mark Marrow was in the news today, actually, and it said that he hasn't spoken to Sable since they got divorced, and he just wishes Brock Lesnar and the kids well. I just saw that popped in the news site. So it was weird to see. That's again, crazy. Serendipitous of how we do things in Shot Nostalgia. Mark Marrow, we talk about you and you pop up in the news. So
yeah, and we weren't talking negative this time. This is actually the enjoyable side of Mark Marrow, and he was actually fun to watch. I really enjoyed him in the Rumble. Actually, I know we shit all over him throughout WCW. He was just always in the newsletter, but yeah, I did not enjoy the Sable Mark Marrow program here. They might be the public enemy of this season.
The next match here is a no contest, and we're going to get used to no contest, man. There's a whole bunch of no contest DQ finishes throughout 1998, but our next match is Flash Funk and Goldust. Goldust is wearing some regrettable makeup and some regrettable attire. So
he looked funky. That's all. We'll just go with that, okay? Vince probably put him up to it. We know that.
So this is a no contest. We get finishes happening here. Funk back suplexes Goldust and calls for finisher. He goes to the top and Luna shoves him off and the match is called off. They rule it a no contest. It really should be a DQ. Funk is given the curtain call, and then Vader comes in and then beats the shit out of Goldust, who runs to the back. So going on here, a lot of mid-card stuff. Flash Funk, we just left him in 95. He was doing great stuff with ECW 95. He's now doing Flash Funk things here. The difference between mid-card and main event, it's such a steep climb from where they are. It's amazing to see the fall off. It's crazy.
No, absolutely. I mean, even a guy like Vader, I mean, somebody that should be in the main event of most companies, he's doing this shit with Goldust. And granted, this wasn't Goldust's shining time of his career.
You don't say. You don't say.
It wasn't him doing good shit with Booker T or anything like that. It was just he was learning. It's okay. Everything's great.
They show the clip of the headbangers on Regis and Kathy Lee, which we talked about, and then we get the Road Dogg Jesse James doing the spiel with the New Age Outlaws. So this is before the ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages gets completely over. But you can see they're building a lot of momentum. They're like they are the tag champs, but it almost is very beginning of the Acclaimed. Like when the Acclaimed was getting off to their act and people were starting to catch on. Now it's, obviously the Acclaimed or the Acclaimed. Everybody loves the Acclaimed, but people are starting to understand the routine and the predictability of it, and they're looking forward to it. And you're seeing that with the Outlaws here.
Yeah, they're coming out fresh in their South Park t-shirts, the beefcake, we're rocking and rolling. We're getting right into the 90s, man. But you get Road Dogg coming out on the mic, a little meltone. Oh, you didn't know? Your ass better call somebody. Like it was good. But I love those trunks. I love the gear. Like it was. They hold a special place in my heart, man. Those are my bone crunching figures from the first ones I ever bought. They're rocking the white DX shirts. He's got the weird tribal gear on the side of Road Dogg's pants. It wasn't quite Mr. Ass. He's just Billy Gunn. He's doing his thing. It's going good, man.
Oh, and Billy Gunn, I remember those figures distinctly. I remember where I was, Toys R Us in Sayville, New York. Got it, and his leg was perfect for the Famouser too. Like it would like bend around the heads perfectly.
Loved it.
I have such fond memories of those Outlaw figures when they came out because they were up there for me as far as
absolutely, man.
As a kid. Anyway, the Outlaws, they defeated the Headbangers to retain the WWF tag titles. Lead us through and then talk about our good friends Chainsaw Charlie and Cactus Jack building up the match only a few months from now.
Yeah, man. It's crazy because we were talking about Terry Funk retiring in 95 ECW, and here we are 3 years down the ride. He's wearing pantyhose on his face. He's got the overalls on. He's got the red t-shirt. This was cool. I loved it. I like the lore of what's it called? Chainsaw Charlie coming out, the chainsaw actually sparking and shit like that. Little details like that pop the fuck out of me. I don't know why, but awesome to see. They're continuing their feud. It's good to check it out. I mean, the Headbangers, the match itself, it was okay. It wasn't nothing spectacular, but we got some good storytelling with Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie putting their fingers, coming down to take out the tag team champions so they could get that title. I want it. I like it. I love it.
They get some more media blitz from the TYSON stuff. We talked about it a lot, but they're making sure to show it all over the screen. And we get a final segment with Shawn Michaels coming out. He makes fun of Owen Hart for not showing up, and he decided to call out someone else. He wants to build up the feud with Undertaker for the Royal Rumble in 2 weeks. He thought Triple H in China could do better as he did it last week, and he wants him to come out. He says the secret password, which is break it down. Triple H and China roll out and try to get his attention, and Shawn plays dumb for a moment and wants to know who's in the casket. He acts dumb, and he wonders who's in it, and Undertaker rises up and pulls him inside. This was some terrible acting by Shawn Michaels. You tell he wasn't in this. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me watching because now I know he's unhappy, and I know he's just like disenfranchised with and disinterested. Like everything you can talk about Shawn Michaels is just like a negative force here. He seemed like he just wasn't into it. But anyway, Taker comes out. They try to make a moment of it. And I don't know, Shawn Michaels makes it look goofy.
The worst part of the whole thing was at the end, we're inside the casket. they like cut the black and you were just sort of like, like what the fuck, man? Yeah. And I do have a hot question for you. I mean, going back and watching this, seeing how their careers went on. I mean, who's the better performer, the better in-ring guy? Is it Triple H or is it Shawn Michaels?
Oof, I mean, really tough. I mean, I have to go Shawn Michaels for the heights that he reached, but Triple H, there was a large period of time where Triple H's ring work and Triple H's world title reign was the bane of my existence from like 02 to like 04. That's a black mark on Triple H's career, in my opinion. I just didn't
the shorts, tights that era.
Like burying Goldberg type of stuff. Like when he finally lost to Benoit, like there was some good matches in between, but he's, I personally, he was one of those guys. I just like, he had heat with me, not in a good way. So Shawn Michaels was always must see. So I don't know. I would go Shawn Michaels all day.
Yeah, I literally I say Triple H until the tail end of Michaels' career. I think tail end Michaels' career was unstoppable. Even though Michaels did a lot of great shit, I mean, watching this, seeing where it's going, and I know we're getting the break from Shawn Michaels taking off for a few years. Triple H kind of comes over and takes over that missing piece. But I thought Triple H was the more entertaining piece of DX, and Shawn Michaels is just kind of this pissed off, grumpy grump, you know, and he's just like, yeah, fuck him, like.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I could definitely see that perspective. And Triple H, both of them had a renaissance at the end of their careers where they just had some of their best work at the latter half. And if Shawn Michaels never came back, I think we'd be having a different conversation, because a lot of what Shawn Michaels did in those Taker matches, I mean, even those Orton matches,
100%, yeah,
like he crushed it. So
Jericho, even, you know,
yeah,
he
like
fucking
later feuds for Shawn Michaels, he had like a rebirth. I mean, figuratively and literally with the religion too. Like he just was a different person post back injury in 2002.
Post commish, you know.
Well, let's get into the 112.98 Penn State University, Pennsylvania. This was a hotbed for WWF Raw. Anytime they're in Penn State, you knew they're going to pop off, and they did a 3.4 total off of the hours against the Nitro with a 4.5. So they're still trailing, but
those numbers are insane.
The numbers are insane. And they open up with the highlight of HBK coming out in a limo with Triple H, and they're mooning. Yeah, they pull their pants down to open the show. It's like, you know what? It's 98, bro. Pull my pants down, show my butt. It's DX, baby.
Hell yeah.
Which we open the match. The first match of the night is the New Age Outlaws taking on the Headbangers, the Goblins, and the Truth Commission, Recon and Sniper. They're in Penn State, so the Outlaws are wearing Florida Gators jersey to get some heat. If you guys did some context here, Penn State lost to Florida in the bowl game leading up to this.
There you go.
Some cheap heat. The match is just the tag division on highlight here, and it's not in a good way. The New Age Outlaws are head and shoulders above the whole tag division. They get the win. Road Dogg runs in, gets knocked out, and Gunn uses a foreign object and pins Phineas, and they run off. So I think right now we are getting sort of the buildup of eventually the LOD coming back in here and wrestling the eventual champion. So we'll see what happens with New Age Outlaws and the Legion of Doom.
Interesting. Very interesting.
So we get the video package of Legion of Doom here, and clearly their intentions will always be the tag championship. And man, 1998 Hawk and Animal is not your daddy's Hawk and Animal. It's not great, but we're still going to get them, and they're much needed in this tag division. People were pumped. I remember being excited. Like, I remember getting the new figures. They came out with new figures with the shorts on, and they had the shoulder pads.
Yes, LOD 2000, man. It was the rebirth. It was good stuff. That was where it was at. This video package was borderline depressing. It was if they would have put Sarah McLachlan playing in the background, it would have been one of those like, do you remember the Legion of Doom? Sarah McLachlan remembers the Legion of Doom.
For only a short $4 a day, you could help the Legion of Doom get their career back on track.
What a run!
For only a short amount of money and time, you just donate the money to Hawk and Animal, and they can get their careers back on track.
Each week we'll send you another 8x10.
All right, so we got Stone Cold arriving here. During the break, he stunned the Godwins, and now he's driving his truck as close to the entrance as he get to, and the fans are just pumped. Cole is interviewing him, and Austin restates that he won last year, and he was tired of the WWF and whining. Michael Cole reminds him that he has a target on him, and Austin is fine with that, and he throws a bullseye himself, and he's not hard to find, nor is he worried. So young Michael Cole here, longevity like a motherfucker. This dude is all over the place. And Stone Cold, again, make his intentions clear. People forget. He was in that 97 Rumble as well. He didn't get the title shot, but he was in that 97 Rumble, and he won it.
Yeah. No, and it was a crazy time. I love the intenseness, though. And Austin drawing the bullseye on him. You know, he's just kind of got that fuck you attitude, and it's the best. Like, let him come after me. I don't give a fuck. Let him go. Awesome stuff, man. Great. Austin on the mic is always just a fun watch, and this just keeps bringing it back.
So before we get into the next match, I have to mention that they had an MTV Celebrity Deathmatch promo with Stone Cold. I remember Celebrity Deathmatch on MTV. This was Celebrity Deathmatch was awesome. Must see TV for me. If you guys have not seen this, YouTube it and check it out. Some great personalities, great entertainment. I'm not sure if it ages as well as it did, but I remember when Austin was on it for the first time, and it popped me huge.
Yes, Judge Mills Lane. Let's get it on. I'm all for it, man.
So our next match here after DX pulls up, we have Kurgan versus a local talent. It's a job match. Kurgan does the thing. squashes more jobbers and pins all three of them. So local talent lose, Kurgan wins. Not much to talk about here. And we get Owen Hart crawling on top of a limo, beating up Triple H, and Shawn runs after him, and the limo door is shut and it drives off. So shenanigans happening backstage, which leads us into the next match.
Oh.
Vader versus Mark Marrow. Belcaster lead us through this. It's short, but again, Mark Marrow and Vader doing stuff.
Yeah, listen, I'm pumped to see Vader back doing anything because he was great, man. And you know, he's been off our screens for so long. He's been passed away, sadly, for all these years. It's so refreshing to see him again. He was a big force. He's a thick boy, and he wrestles like a thick boy. I love all. But yeah, it was an interesting segment. Nothing fantastic. Sable's, you know, getting her shit in. She's getting over. Marrow's getting his shit in, and he's getting heat. And Vader is just fucking Big Van Vader. Jerry Lawler's commentary during the Vader matches is, he eats off a satellite dish. Like, it's a little hard to listen to sometimes, but it's so good. We get Goldust out there. That was, you know, he's dressed as Sable. This popped me so hard. You know, he's got the thong on. He's rocking the lingerie. It was pretty funny, and he's rocking Marrow's corner for a minute. This is a clusterfuck. I don't know what they were doing. They're just trying to get the fact that Goldust is weird and Marrow and Sable are doing their thing. It was okay. It wasn't bad.
The thing I kept thinking of is just Vader throughout this, and he was so close to being the champ only a few years prior in '95, and him and Shawn Michaels and like that whole program, and then where he is now. It's crazy. '96, I should say. So like, it's crazy to see, but. We get more highlights of Tyson boxing. We get the DX limo arriving again after they left, and there's no Owen Hart. And then we get Vader stunned in the back by Stone Cold. So nice. The night gets worse for Vader. As we have the next match here, Rock and D'Lo Brown, great team, taking on Ken Shamrock and Mark Henry. This is a really good match on paper.
Yeah.
So seeing the Rock, a young Rock here, not the TV show, but the man. The Rock sucks t-shirt in the crowd. And then Rock mentions Cordell Stewart, who called the Rock to find out what it takes to be a champion, and said that took the old man's Joe Paterno's advice. So two things. Cordell Stewart is the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Joe Paterno is the famous all-time winning coach of Penn State. And so they're just, again, using local sports and trying to weave it together. Obviously, it's sort of easy way to get heat from the local audience if their sport team sucks or something happens. The Rock didn't really need that, but Rock said he's going to beat Henry's fat ass for wearing a Rocky sucks shirt. This match continues. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in here. D'Lo Brown, a young talented wrestler. We talked about him in 1995 being part of the ring crew of Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and insane. He was a underrated part of this whole roster. And I remember his run as European champion. I'm just excited to see him here. He was a very, very understated thing that people don't really talk about. D'Lo Brown is awesome.
Yeah, pre chest plate D'Lo Brown, which is great. I love. I was a huge fan of D'Lo Brown always. I thought it was great, and this. I mean, the action in this match between Rock and Shamrock is fantastic. It was just a good segment, good little filler segment. I really enjoyed it.
So the match gets thrown out, but then this is the moment where Mark Henry joins the Nation. He comes in and just dismantles Shamrock, power slams him, hits the elbow as Rock directs traffic, and the Nation comes in without Farouk, and they continue to stomp a hold on him. Farouk is watching and is not happy. So obviously the Rock taking control, being the leader. We're going to get that coming to a head with Farouk and the Rock having an issue with each other about who's the leader of the Nation. We get a Rock interview in the back, and Cole asked the Rock what he wanted to happen and what he wanted the former member of the Nation to do, which he called Farouk. He's a former member of the Nation. Rock tells him that he brought in Mark Henry in for as well as the Icy Gold, and Farouk just looks like he shit himself. So now it's just like Farouk is on the odd man out, former member of the Nation, according to the Rock. And we have two different sets of people trying to build towards what they want the Nation to be. And what Farouk created is now being molded into what the Rock wants it to be. And it's a good storyline.
It is. It's very good. Very rich storyline. I enjoyed every bit of it, man.
So we have another DX segment here. Triple H mocking Owen Hart. Just more stuff here leading up to the match. The two different feuds going on. And Shawn decides to discuss Kane and Owen. comes on the Titantron and tells him he knows about his family, and Triple H responds that he's in the ring waiting for him. Owen comes out swinging a crutch, and refs come out to hold him out. So decent segment here, building up more stuff in the Rumble. Thoughts on this segment?
I like it, man. It's cool to see, Kane, being in the middle of this. Owen is on a roll. Like I said, it's very grungy Owen. I love it. And the crutch spot was cool. I like pissed off Owen. You didn't see enough of it. He was always usually just trying to prove himself. Here he was just like trying to get revenge on DX. And I thought it was a cool character trait that we didn't see enough of out of Owen. So it was refreshing to kind of go back and see this pissed off version of Owen Hart. I liked it.
We get another no contest here. Disciples of Apocalypse take on the Rock and Roll Express. Cornette's on commentary.
NWA's Rock and Roll Express, damn it.
So good. And Rock and Roll Express on WWF TV is a rare thing. We saw them pop in WCW for a bit, but they, still doing their thing. They're on their retirement tour now, but really awesome to see here. If they were full-time in WWF as far as the tag division, probably would have been a nice addition because they needed another team to really be a staple. LOD, as I don't want to use the word washed up, but I guess the word is like disappointing as they were in 98. They still were very needed because New Age Outlaws needed a counterpart to go against them. No,
absolutely. The tag division doesn't take off until, the Hardys and Edge and Christian and shit like that. Like this is a very dim tag division for WWF, and it doesn't really get that much better, but LOD 2000 is fantastic. Outlaws are fantastic, but once the younger talents start coming up, that's when the tag division really kicks off. But it's still cool to see them kind of doing their thing. I mean, we got Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie, we got the Outlaws, and it was fun to see Rock and Roll Express, even if they were going against DOA.
We do get a mention on the hotline that Hogan may be returning to the WWF, and right at this point, as we mentioned in the newsletter, his contract's up, and they're probably try to bring in some ratings and just some buzz, even if he's not coming there. So just interesting to see that on the hotline that even WWF is mentioned. Again, they don't give a shit. Yeah. They just want press. You know what I mean? Like, that's it.
Yeah.
So Cactus Jack is at Happy Valley and discusses his battles with Terry Funk, and he's a bit confused about the Charlie gimmick, but the Outlaws do not know what's coming for them. This feud's a long time in the making. We get that dumpster match at WrestleMania. They're building it at the Royal Rumble. Like, this is completely different than what we're used to seeing nowadays.
100%. And if Cactus is baffled by the Charlie gimmick, imagine how we all felt. We had no idea what was going on. Even Terry Funk was like, what the fuck am I doing in the pantyhose and a red t-shirt? Okay, let's go with it, man.
So we have Mankind versus Goldust. Lead us through here. This is another no contest. Vince Russo doesn't give a shit about finishes.
No, listen, bro. We're going to have Goldust, Dustin, come here. We're going to dress you like Dude Love. You're going to go out there. You're going to do your thing, and the Mankind's going to beat the shit out of you. It's basically what it was. It was good. I thought it was fun. Goldust, this character change thing. It's not as cringe as I thought it was going to be. It was pretty fun. And then, listen, I'm a Mankind mark, Mick Foley, whatever. It was good stuff. It was quick and to the point.
So we get Vince McMahon talking about his negotiations with Mike Tyson, and he will be on Raw next week for a big announcement to talk more about it. The fans do boo Vince. This is really before. I mean, Vince McMahon's character is the Vince McMahon character, but it's not quite there yet. I mean, Vince got stunned by Austin. He did the screw job stuff. We're not going to get the Mr. McMahon character in full tilt for a little bit further in the year. But Lawler is playing into it, saying the fans really do love you, Vince. And Vince is, I mean, a natural on the microphone. Like, he's a perfect heel.
Oh, it's the best. And he's got the fence backdrop. He's
so good.
We're getting him, damn it. It's great shit. It's your typical Vince stuff, but so goddamn good.
So we got Sonny coming down in a cheerleader outfit, more Sonny stuff, and it goes right into the next match, which is another sort of mid-card match. The Bariquas take on Taka Michinoku and Scotty Tuhati, aka Scott Taylor. This is before Scotty Tuhati. Decent match here. Double drop kick finishes it. Taka's powerbombed and Scott is suplex off the top and finished. So Los Barricos got the win here. Another, tag match here that really doesn't really mean much. So it's not even that worth to get into. But Taka Michinoku, very talented wrestler that is going to have his moment to shine at WrestleMania 14. And he's still wrestling, man. He's in Pro Wrestling Noah doing stuff.
Yeah, it's insane, man.
We get another DX segment here if you want to go through it and talk a little bit about what's going on here.
Yeah, no, they're talking shit about You know, they're talking. Paul Bearer and Kane split up. Blah blah. Blah. They're talking about, oh, we'll accept Kane and opens arms, which is funny because it eventually does happen down the line. Not for a while until a young X-Pac comes back and they start the tag team. But it was very fun. Undertaker comes out. DX is freaking out. Undertaker is doing his gimmick, leave my family's name out of your fucking mouth. He's ready to slap the taste out of their mouth, and Kane comes down, and it's really good back and forth. Undertaker and Kane kind of teaming up here. Good shit. Big fan taking down DX. It's I wouldn't say the first time we're seeing it, but it's cool to see it. I like it, man.
Yeah, this is the go-home show for the Rumble. So they do a drawing in the ring for the Rumble numbers, and Shamrock comes down with a purpose. Him and Henry slug it out, and then the Honky Tonk Man comes out, and the brawl starts up again. They're announcing the participants, and Cactus Jack comes down, and then Austin comes down, and then Austin continues to stun people. Austin is left there standing, and Austin heads up the ramp, and the Nation is there with Vega, and Austin gets kneed and destroyed. So, I mean, this was very, very good way to end the show. There was a lot of energy going in a certain direction. It was interesting to see someone get a one-uppance on Austin, but they went into a lot of programs being built up super strong for the Rumble.
Absolutely, and a chaotic ending to the Raw, which led for a good build to the pay-per-view. And you that was your time. Call the cable company, get it down. We're ordering the Rumble, damn it.
Which leads us to January 18th, 1998 from San Jose Arena, the Shark Tank. The attendance was 18,542. The Royal Rumble, our current champs right now, Shawn Michaels won the championship back November 9th, 1997 at Survivor Series. The Intercontinental Champion is Rocky Maivia. He won it back on December 9th, 1997. And our tag champs, as we mentioned before, the New Age Outlaws, they won it back on November 24th, 1997. And, of course, we got Jim Ross and Jerry the King Lawler behind the dish, talking shop with and they might be the best tandem in all wrestling announcing history in this time.
100%, man. I love it. It picks right up where it left off mentally. Like, you get back on here and you hear Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler going back and forth. You're like, oh, it's like putting on a warm blanket, eating some soup when you're sick. Like, it just feels warm and nice and toasty.
So it's at this point of the show, you and I both realize we're going over 2 hours. It's inevitable. I mean, this is sort of on paper. So we're gonna have to figure it out. I don't want to rush through it because we got a lot of good stuff to talk about. We will figure it out.
Absolutely.
Now I'm realizing season 1. The reason why we did two episodes of Nitro is because it takes us some time to get through it. But you know what? There's so much 1998 goodness. We're gonna get through all the stuff and lead our first match, Mike Belcaster. We get the artist formerly known as Goldust taking on Vader.
Yeah. This Goldust is just so eccentric for doing, but man, great match. Vader got up through a lot of it. Goldust hits him with a low blow while Luna's fucking with the ref. It was fun. It was good, and Vader eventually gets him with that big ass Vader bomb with Luna on top. It was a great spot. Luna looked like she was about to die. It was fun. I enjoyed it, man. It was nothing crazy. But it was a good opening match for the pay-per-view. I thought it was fun.
Yeah, and this is Luna's first appearance on WWF TV since managing Bam Bam Bigelow in 1994. So this was
wow.
We saw Luna in 1995 ECW. So again, more tie-ins and characters, and she's going to be at the side of Goldust. I guess they fit together pretty nicely as far as characters go.
Yeah, no, listen, match made in heaven. I like the freakiness out of both of it, but that is a fucking crazy stat that she hasn't been on WWF TV since 1994. First playable woman in a WWF video game, by the way, on WWF Raw, I want to say, back on the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo system.
That makes it, that actually makes sense to me. I remember her in that game.
It's cool.
Next match here, not much to talk about here. It's another mini match, but we're just giving some respect here. Max Mini, Mosaic, and Nova defeat Battalion, El Torito, and Tarantula when Max Mini pinned El Torito with a cradle, 7 minutes and 46 seconds. There is a deal in place with the AAA Mexican mini deal, so they're on a solid string of pay-per-views here. So this was an entertaining match. I mean, at the end of the day, like it kind of bridges the gap from match to match, but this never really caught on, but not for lack of trying. They definitely showcased it.
I thought the actual in-ring work was entertaining. I thought it was fun. Sonny was the referee here. which was it was interesting. The commentary, on the other hand, was very, very too jokey, very, very unpolitically correct. It was just, I think Lawler pulled out a pun at any moment he possibly could. And yeah, it was still entertaining, man. It was still a good match.
All right, our next match is for the Intercontinental Championship. It's Rocky Maivia defending his championship against Ken Shamrock. Lead us through the match. Tell us what you thought about it. I mean, two great guys. Does this feud feel like it's going to continue? They're going to wrestle at WrestleMania 14, so a lot of seeds being sown here.
Yeah, no, it was a banger of a match. I could have watched this for another 10 minutes, and it probably would have been fantastic. But sadly, it goes on to a disqualification. But I mean, you couldn't put two more electric people in the ring together. Watching The Rock and Ken Shamrock, they had fucking really good chemistry. I guess that's why it was such a big deal to have The Rock induct Shamrock into the Impact Hall of Fame, because of their history here, which is not talked about enough. I think it was really good, good back and forth. We got storyline with the nation. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. This was first shot at a championship on pay-per-view, so a really big deal for him. Ends in a DQ, but this is one of those feuds. I mean, go through the different years. Goldust and Undertaker in 96, Mankind Triple H through 97, Rock and Shamrock is 1998's running feud for the IC title. And this is the first of many times they're going to face on pay-per-view, both in singles and tags match, and they're going to be involved throughout the whole year. I mean, this match is, it goes as well as it goes, but the finish left him in a box a little bit. They didn't want to have either guy lose because they're building them up. And The Rock is really falling into this heel role. And I think Shamrock is fitting really nicely in this face role. And by June, you're going to see impeccable chemistry with the two of these guys. And then, I mean, the fact it ends in DQ sucks. I mean, let's be honest, but I think the fact they're building towards something bigger, it's easy to look past the fact it's DQ here.
100%. Like I said, it was a very captivating match. It was good stuff. A lot of good meat on the bone here. So it was awesome. And I'm looking forward to more Shamrock and Rock shit going down the line. And I love it, man.
Our next match here is for the Tag Team Championship. It also ends in a DQ, but it's the New Age Outlaws defending their championship against the Legion of Doom. And a few weeks before this show, the Outlaws, with the help of Shawn Michaels and Triple H, beat the hell out of LOD. And the beating ending up an all-men powerbombing Animal through the announcer's table, and the Outlaws shaving off Hawk's trademark hair. And the move impressed DX so much, who the Outlaws had some potential in their eyes. So at this point, the feud is going on for a while, and the Outlaws are clearly circled as the future of wrestling, while the LOD is the past and maybe the present, quote unquote. The fact that it's a DQ sucks again, but this was it felt like it should have been passing of the torch, and it just wasn't. So not a great ending, but it certainly had some bright spots as far as guys that are working together. You can see the real potential that Billy Gunn and Road Dogg are going to be future players throughout the rest of the Attitude Era.
100%. And it was cool to see Animal and Hawk out there doing their thing. It left you wanting more, which, I mean, eventually we do get more. So I guess it got the point across.
Yeah, and some people, if I'm reading right, as far as the 90s go, they were very upset with the way LOD was presenting. And this was one of the moments here where, I mean, people that were huge LOD fans were not a fan of them losing in ways like this because they were squashing teams. But what are you going to do? You bring them back. They can't just squash tag teams. You need to build new talent. So they're going to come and play ball. So it was kind of a no-win situation for a team like Legion of Doom. How are they going to get over to the point where they were squashing teams? That's not what you want for your division. It just doesn't, it's not a healthy thing to build up new stars.
No, not at all.
It leads us into the Royal Rumble match here. It goes 55 minutes and 23 seconds. It's not as long as this year's Rumble, which went like an hour 10 or something like that. But lead us through, Mike Belcaster. Tell us a little bit about what you liked about the Rumble. Obviously, not to go through the whole thing, but one of the more predictable Rumbles in history. That was sort of the criticism on the Cody Rhodes win this year, but everyone could have predicted Stone Cold was winning the Rumble, and it popped people huge, and they were a fan of it.
Yeah, it was predictable, but very much needed. I felt the lore of Austin getting in there, the build up to it was almost better than the execution. You know, the pagers, Austin just showing up at shops, stunning people left and right. Like you were on Austin's side already, but now that he's gotten this extra fire up his ass, it really made you want to see him get in there and just fucking run wild, right? Highlights of this, watching Bradshaw, a very thick Bradshaw, big mustache, it was fun. Always like it's not JBL yet, but he's doing great, man. It was really cool. The three faces of Foley, the infamous Royal Rumble, where we get not only Mankind, not only Dude Love, and Cactus Jack. It was awesome and very well done. I love that Chainsaw Charlie eliminated Cactus Jack, and then Mankind comes in and eliminates Chainsaw Charlie. Good fucking storytelling. Very, very fun. Yeah, I thought besides the potential jobber list that's in this Rumble, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was really good. Seeing Austin and The Rock come down to the bottom two is historic. And it was so done well too. Austin really, you don't see it a lot. How like when Austin's in the Rumble, guys are going after him, trying to throw him over the top rope. He was utilizing that middle rope so damn well. You don't see that enough in nowadays Rumbles. You know, you see guys like holding on and like you'll see like a lot of middle of the rope spots, but like Austin in the corner laying down with one leg wrapped around the bottom rope, one leg tied up to the middle of rope. It was good shit. I love watching stuff like that. So yeah, it was really cool, man. And listen, The Rock was in for fucking ever. Like it was a really well done Rumble. I thought it was fun to watch, really, really enjoyable.
Yeah, and Stone Cold came out at number 24, and it seemed like, as you mentioned before, there's a lot of guys in this match that were just clearly not winning. The ring filled up more so than many Rumbles. We watched this Rumble. It was pretty full, and they were waiting for Austin to come out. It felt like there was a little bit of like a waiting game for him to come out and do his thing. Once he did, he stuck through the crowd while everyone else was looking at the ramp. The crowd went absolutely nuts when they saw him, and he would be in there for about 16 minutes. When you mentioned before, Rock was the last one to toss over the top rope. He gets a title shot at WrestleMania. Woo. And we don't know right now who's the champion. They mentioned that on commentary. We don't know if it's going to be Shawn Michaels or Taker going into Mania for the championship. At the moment right now, nobody really cared about that. They just knew that their guy was going to WrestleMania. It felt like their guy finally got the win. And, you know, the Rumble itself, we mentioned before, probably below average if you have to really grade it. Some of the names in here, let's go through them. I mean, Tom Brady, Phineas, Godwin, Aiden, Asher. I mean, there was literally nobody else in this match that could have won the match. I mean, I'm looking at maybe you could have made the argument for Ken Shamrock. Maybe you could have made the argument for a guy like Owen Hart or The Rock. But everybody else, it is an impossibility for Tom Brady, Mosh, Phineas Godwin, 8-Ball. I mean,
Chains.
Yeah.
You
name it, man. Zero shot anybody else was in this Rumble, and that took away some of the drama. But sometimes predictability is good. Like the right choice was made for Austin to win, and like why pivot? Like we talk about following the tea leaves and following the groundswell, what people want. Austin was what people want, and you gave it to them. They could have went a different route and did the wrong thing, but they didn't, and they made the right decision.
Yeah, and there was like some good eliminations and stuff like that. Like when they threw Kurgan out, I'm glad they didn't do like the Great Khali spot where he knocks everybody back. Like they just like fuck him, throw him over the top. Like there's parts that made sense to it, which was fun. I can't say enough about how awesome it was to see Foley 3 times in one event, just doing his thing. It was cool, man. It wasn't the best Rumble, but it also probably wasn't the worst. I think it was very enjoyable. But like you said, who the hell else was going to win that at this time? You know, you knew it was going for it, and I think the best tease they possibly did was The Rock and Austin at the end. Because imagine if The Rock won, imagine if a Foley won. Nobody, you know, it would have changed the course of history. Nobody would have watched.
Rock is a few months away from winning the title too at that tournament too. Like in Deadly Games, he wins the championship, and he's not far away from it. So it's not to say he couldn't have won. They definitely had circled him as a guy that is the future of wrestling. And like we mentioned before, Ken Shamrock as well could have been the guy, but it felt like it was destined to be Stone Cold. But imagine in a different world, Ken Shamrock versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 14
with Tyson as the ref.
With Tyson, exactly. So
and Tyson and Shamrock could collide there. Listen, you can make it work. You could book it and sell it. I don't see why not. But nothing would have put asses in the seats like Stone Cold Steve Austin versus Shawn Michaels with special enforcer Tyson on the outside.
Absolutely. And you got to give the fans what they want. And following this, Stone Cold obviously is the winner. And Michael Cole, they go to Mike Tyson, who's the enforcer at WrestleMania. He's in the box with a whole bunch of who's who of wrestling, McMahon, the Skybox. And Mike Tyson, you get one job, man. You're getting paid $4 million. Let's get the name. Let's get the name right. He kept
Cold
calling
Stone
Steve
Steve
Austin
Austin.
Cold Stone. It's not ice cream, Mike Tyson. It's Stone Cold. Come on.
He likes his ice cream though too, so it's okay. He was just excited, but that's what I mean. Like you could see how excited he was, how the little kid inside of him was lighting up. There's no way in hell he wouldn't have he would have, done a couple raws and be like, you know what, this isn't my thing. He was hooked, line, sing, hell yeah, give him some toys, let him have fun. And that's exactly what it was. I love Tyson's little kid inside. Like it really, you appreciate it, especially nowadays.
Which leads us to our main event here as we pass that 2-hour threshold as for the first time since the first episode of Shot Nostalgia. So just so you know, guys, we're here for you guys. We're going to try to fit it in under 2 hours future-wise because it's harder to upload. Full transparency.
Yes.
Audio aside, it's just harder video-wise because StreamYard leaves us limited. But I digress. Shawn Michaels taking on Taker in a casket match for the WWF Championship, with the right at this point to face Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14 in Boston, Massachusetts. Mike Belcaster, talk about this match. And there's a lot that goes into this match. This is a huge turning point. Nobody knew it would be the turning point it was with the injury that happened, but lead us through.
No, listen, it was a lot of good shit. Just, seeing Shawn Michaels, like we know the history, so it's almost bittersweet to look back at it because we know that Michaels fucks his back up here really badly. Which is a great match. I mean, coming off that Hell in the Cell match, going into this, what a program, right? Like, how can you top that? I mean, this was like Michaels' farewell tour for now. That's what it feels like. It really, like in retrospect, that's how it feels. Thought it was a really fun casket match, and you don't see a lot of great casket matches. This really set the bar, and I think it still holds the bar. I thought it was really well done. Seeing Michaels and Taker at it, even back then, was a spectacle. And we just talked about it. Like, who's the better? Like Michaels aged like fine wine in the long run, but I mean, we're WrestleMania. Royal Rumble 98. I mean, Shawn Michaels and Taker, WrestleMania fucking 28, right? There's it's something along there.
And 25 and 26, yeah.
Yeah, so like talk about a feud. Talk about longevity, and it goes all the way back here. Thought it was great. Really set up the Austin era. Really setting up Undertaker is a presence still, not hurting anybody with the finish. HBK, you kind of see he's getting tired, but he also is pissed off, angry, and but man, that spot when he hits his back on the fucking the fucking the coffin it's intense, man. Like you felt it. Now knowing what it was like oof, and it was intense, man.
Yeah, and so this you mentioned before the history between these guys, and at the time, prior to those matches at WrestleMania 25 and 26, they already had a storied history. This is at the time the final match between two guys with a very violent history. We just saw the Hell in a Cell between them. They're one of the most notorious moments where, of Survivor Series and Montreal Screwjob. This is a huge, pivotal point for WWF, and they had Shawn Michaels holding that championship. We mentioned the opening of the Royal Rumble show. The last time we saw the title change hands was there. So a lot has gone on, and big moments have happened where they're passing the torch to somebody else, and they're waiting to pass it on from Shawn Michaels. And Shawn Michaels so desperately wants to give it to someone who's deserving, even though he's doing it begrudgingly. And of course, we'll get into that with all those stories. But the match itself was pretty good. I mean, it's not the Hell in a Cell match when you compare it to the memorable moments, but as you mentioned, 100%. As far as casket matches go, it's one of those storytelling mechanisms that it handcuffs some of the talent, but they did such a good job. And I think it's a credit to obviously both of them in the ring, and looking at the casket they used too. There were some cool spots, as you mentioned, to see the tombstone in the casket or see the elbow drop in the casket was big enough that they were able to do those things. And that was cool. And seeing the Kane thing, part of it as well, being reunited with his brother. And then you see Kane turn on him where it eventually ends the match. That was a really, really awesome moment. But the big takeaway from this is the subtle moment we just talked about, injuring the lower back when he whacks his back on the end of the hinge of the casket. we know now it's 2 slip discs, one severely herniated disc where it just is, he's not able to get out of bed 2 days later. Like, he doesn't even feel it now. He's moving around, no problem. He does some crazy stuff, and that might just be adrenaline. It may just be the fact that it didn't actually, once you stop moving, maybe it starts to become a little bit tighter.
Yeah.
Within 2 months, he's retired for 4 years, and we don't see him until 2002, and that's it. A full history tilting moment that will alter the course of wrestling history and the careers of everybody involved, because when Shawn Michaels leaves, that is a whole energy vacuum that pulls aside, and someone else has to take that spot. And I don't know if wrestling looks exactly the same. I don't know, like we mentioned before, the butterfly effect. Who's missing from the top of the card if Shawn Michaels is there? I know Stone Cold was always ticketed to be there. The guy I look at is Triple H. Like, is Triple H ever going to get his moment to take that spot? He truly steps right in and takes Shawn Michaels and his spot and runs with it, whether it be physically with the DX spot, but then also becoming champion within a year of this. I mean, 99, he wins his first championship in the summer. So, I mean, this is a huge, huge moment. And it's almost better for Shawn, too, because Shawn was able to get right. Who knows what would have happened if he would have stayed there as miserable as he was.
100%. You could tell he was burnt out. You could tell, you know, shit was getting crazy. It probably would have became its own entity if he didn't leave. And who knows? It could have. I mean, wrestling has been very, very tragic, and God forbid anything would have happened to him had he not taken this time off. I think the time off was very, very beneficial for him. And you know what? The best part about it too was not even knowing that his back was fucked up. They still set up Taker to have a good program after this. You know, like with the Kane shit. So you're not burning anybody by doing the finish here. But it's a wild thought to think, you know, how bad it could have gotten for Shawn Michaels, and thank God something did happen to him that kind of fucking took him out of the cards for a while. We needed it. I think he needed it. You know, so I think we wouldn't have gotten WrestleMania 25, 26 if these 4 years did not happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I know that it's hard to look at a positive with a broken back, but that's truly what it was. It's a forced reset where it's like, all right, you need to step away from this and get right mentally and physically. And, you know, the program, I'm sure they were leading up. There was a huge panic from end of January to early March where they didn't know if Shawn was going to be able to do business or want to do business. And we have all those stories, and the stories told by Undertaker and Shawn Michaels and Triple H and everybody involved about passing the torch to Stone Cold and how important that really was, because they needed the guy who was the face of the old generation doing it. It would be different if it was Taker. Say they put the title on Taker here, or Shawn couldn't compete and they had to have somebody else. I don't think that moment would be the same. It needed to be Shawn Michaels passing the torch to Austin and having JR saying the Austin era has begun, from the stunner to Shawn Michaels spinning him around off the Sweet Chin Music. That whole program had to go right, because you're setting that stage to carry you into the next few years, where that is the launch point. For me, when WrestleMania 14 hits, he wins the title, Tyson's raising his hand, and he's wearing the Austin 316 shirt. That is the momentum shift that it changes the tide. You could point to any real moment, but Austin being crowned as the new guy had to be done right, because you can crown somebody, as we've seen time and time again. If it's not done the right way and fans don't accept it, look at Roman Reigns. It took years and years from them to get what they wanted. They forced it. This was the perfect moment where it created this magical moment, but it also crowned Stone Cold to carry the torch, and Shawn Michaels went away to get right. And, you know, history writes itself from there.
Yeah, no, it's crazy to think about. Absolutely crazy. Hell of a main event.
So, I mean, looking at this show, I mean, we talked about the undercard being a little bit weak, but there's a lot of the good stuff is really, really good. I mean, the screwy finishes it's par for the course in 98. We expect to see it. It's sort of, the wrestling is secondary at the end of the day. The stories come number one, and the stories are really, really rich and deep. And the Rumble, I mean, we talked about it being predictable, and just, I guess the word would be just uneventful, but it was solid. There was moments in there that were exciting, memorable stuff, like obviously Austin winning for the second year in a row, and then Foley coming out 3 times. That's stuff that's going to live forever. Funk and Foley starting the Rumble. That's two guys that you're never going to see do that again. Having
So
that
fun.
opportunity based off of 95 where we just saw to see them in the Rumble opening up.
Yeah.
That's not lost on me. I'm sure a lot of fans that watch this, it's not lost on them either. Whether it's Terry Funk or Chainsaw Charlie, it doesn't matter what iteration of it. It's still very cool to see.
Yeah, the history's still there, and they carried it on too. They made more history out of it. It was fun, man. I really enjoyed it.
So this is, I mean, Steve Austin at this point, this is not his, inauguration of being the superstar, but it's damn close. Like they're right about
this
to
is
be
a pre-parade,
Exactly. This is pre being sworn into office. He's just absolutely ready to be the guy who carries it on their back and becoming one of those stars that's transcendent. And WCW at this point is still the lead dog. They're still the guys carrying the product, and they have all the guys there. And it feels like WCW on their end is probably bulletproof. I mean, their guys, they're knocking out of the park at this point. And you can be critical of their booking too, but people that were watching wrestling at this time were spoiled because on both sides of the fence, it was absolutely epic programming with personalities we're never going to get in wrestling again. Transcendent household names, guys like Hogan and Austin on both sides. And we're going to get the buildup of Goldberg coming soon too. So a lot of good stuff coming down the line for wrestling fans, but Austin is going to burn through everybody as being the whitest hot guy in the business that we've seen and probably will ever see. I don't think we'll ever see a guy get as over as Austin is at this point.
And that's the bottom line.
And this to me was the perfect appetizer for the Attitude Era. It like felt perfect because it said goodbye to 97 a bit. You still had a little bit of a 97 flair in the beginning of the Raws, but by the time we ended the Rumble, it really feels like a completely different product. No more Bret Hart. Shawn Michaels is eventually going to Austin's era, and it's going to continue to go on through 98.
Yes, and a lot less Godwins coming down the line, which I'm fucking super pumped.
All right, let's get to the chaser, man. Let's talk about our favorite part of the two Raws and the Rumble, and talk about what we like best. We're 11 minutes over, but god damn it, we're here doing the damn thing. And you guys can stay tuned following this. We got Brother Greatness on Visits the Tavern following this interview, this episode. You can listen to that interview. Brother Greatness of all different wrestling promotions, most recently of the Wrestling Open, Remarkable Wrestling, MYWC, all over the place. So stay tuned for that. Let's get to the chaser. Mike Belcaster, your favorite part of the January 5th, January 12th, and the 1998 Royal Rumble. What stuck out most to you?
Man, there was so much meat on the bone, so much fun going on from Don King to Don Callis. We had it all, man. But I got two for this one. Obviously, it's Austin winning the Rumble. I mean, such a important moment in WWF pro wrestling history as it is. But I'm giving my overall top to seeing the three faces of Foley come down the ramp and fucking that is my love. That's what made me a fan. I was blown away. I couldn't believe it myself. I remember telling my dad, "That's Mick Foley. He did it 3 times. What the fuck is this shenanigans? He shouldn't be allowed to do that," but I still loved it at the time. God bless Mick Foley. God bless the 1998 Royal Rumble. What a good time this was.
100%, man. I agree with you. Austin, obviously, that's the obvious answer. And how could you not? He was all over the shows on Raw. He is clearly the guy that everyone's tuning in for. But I'm going to talk about the casket match. I thought it was a really well done main event for the Royal Rumble. I liked it. They closed the show with it. We didn't even mention at the end of the show because it just like kind of slipped my mind. But Taker was lit on fire in the casket too. So they had still some of that, Kane took an axe to the casket while Paul Bearer stood behind him, and Kane lit him on fire. And they're building up that WrestleMania 14 match, which is a good match. I mean, don't get me wrong. Two big hosses going at it, two very memorable characters. And yeah, I mean, I also enjoyed the Ken Shamrock stuff too. I think Ken Shamrock, we're going to look at as one of those missed opportunities to, I'm not saying Ken Shamrock could have been the transcendent star that maybe Meltzer had him ticketed as if Mike Tyson gave him a rub of any kind. But I think Ken Shamrock could have been a legitimate world champion that could have drawn. And I think that wrestling wasn't ready for that UFC mixed martial arts type of guy quite yet. And I think if Ken Shamrock came around maybe 2001, 02, around the time over there, where he was still active, but I think he was, off to do different things.
He was over it. Yeah.
Yeah, he was over it. So I think Ken Shamrock himself, very talented guy. He paved the way for some future wrestlers that maybe didn't think they had a place in wrestling, and among other guys. But Ken Shamrock was one of those trailblazers that doesn't get as much of the praises that he probably deserves. And I'm a huge fan. Seeing the program with The Rock, you could really point to, and The Rock speaks to in a lot of interviews. Anytime he talks about wrestling, he talked about on that, as you mentioned before, the Ken Shamrock Hall of Fame induction.
Yeah,
he talks about how great and how important Ken Shamrock was to making The Rock into a main event character. And it's no coincidence that he works with Ken Shamrock for over a year and a half, and then he's transitioned right into the main event. Like, that's no coincidence. And I think Ken Shamrock could have done the same thing. You could have continued that Rock feud with Ken Shamrock, with Rock as champion. It just seemed like the top of the card was too heavy and Ken Shamrock floated to the bottom. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think he definitely got lost in the shuffle among all the greatness going on, which sucks because it could have been something huge for him. But I mean, also we got the best couple of years of wrestling, and he was part of it too. So I got to give him props for that. I got to give everybody props for keeping it real. I totally went over this, but when Ken Shamrock came out to the Rumble, he did that spinning fucking kick, right? He was on fire with it. It was awesome to watch. Shamrock was really great in the ring, really good expressions. I mean, on the Raw, you see him he had good facials. He's a good damn worker. I hope more love comes out for him. He deserves his flowers. Damn it, we don't talk about the flowers enough anymore. Ken Shamrock deserves his flowers.
I completely agree, and I think coming out of 1998, we're all thinking about guys like The Rock, guys like Foley, guys like Austin, Vince McMahon. But I think we're really going to see unsung heroes, and Ken Shamrock is the first of them that we're going to be like, wow, he was someone who was going out there and entertaining at a level that maybe we didn't realize at the time because it was a little bit understated. Obviously, the focus of the show was somewhere else, but very, very important to the product of the show and building up the characters around him. That, again, the program with The Rock was so important to build up The Rock as who he was. And let's not forget, Ken Shamrock went over in that match at WrestleMania 14, and we'll talk about it. They reversed the decision because he wouldn't unlock the ankle lock, which is one of my favorite finishes of all time because you keep the title on Rocky, and then you also have Ken Shamrock look strong. I don't know. It was over, man. Things was awesome.
I loved it.
All right, let's close the tab. Let's preview next week, and let's talk about what's coming up down the week for the Tavern. The bar lights are coming on here. WWF 1998. I don't know what they're drinking in 98, but it's strong as hell. The bar lights are on. They want you out of this goddamn bar. You don't have to go home, but you goddamn it, you can stay here. We're going to close the tab. Our next week's show is episode 2 of season 3. We're going to be talking about the January 19th Raw, the January 26th Raw, and the February 2nd Raw. So we're going to have to find a way, Mike Belcaster, to trim this down to 2 hours. I think
we'll get there. I think there was a lot of excitement today. I think there was a lot of build up for this first event of ours, the first episode of season 3. But I think we'll make it work, man.
If worst comes to worst, we restructure some of the episodes. You and I don't even know what season 4 is yet. Maybe we go back to the 2-episode format to get us on our game, to be able to be, you know what? Maybe we have to sit here and talk a little bit more about the newsletter and expand the time. Because if you did the math, if we finished that Raw, it would have been at hour 50. We would have 10 minutes to close the tab and chaser. That's probably about exactly where we were. It's creative. We got a little cocky with ECW. We covered 8 months of ECW in one episode sometimes, but I think we take for granted that the newsletter is not based on ECW. The newsletter is really WWF. That's why it takes so much conversation to get through it.
100%. But listen, it's all good. I hope everybody enjoyed this episode, and it's a learning curve, man. We're professionals, but we're still learning as well. And I think, we'll hit the vibe. We're striding, we're vibing, we're still in our space. We still got this. We gotta trim some fat somewhere.
I mean, I'm not disappointed it went that long. I just, it makes everybody's life a little bit harder to upload it and stuff. But I do hope you guys enjoy this. Like I mentioned, Brother Greatness's interview, Visits the Tavern, is airing right after this. So as soon as this goes off the air, you see that subscribe, turnbuckletavern.com outro. Pop over to the next thing. Brother Greatness again. Great talent. Awesome conversation. We talk everything about the Ruthless Aggression era. We talk about his career. We talk about his favorite opponents. It's a great conversation, and I'm very thankful he came on. One of the nicest guys that I've worked with in wrestling. He's been a part of a lot of the shows I've been a part of. So, Brother Greatness, one of the guys that I was really happy to be on. One of the better interviews I feel that we've had on Visits to Tavern, so I'm excited.
I hope he comes in with a beautiful, warm Dave Chappelle, like, Brother Greatness. Ah! I love it. It's good stuff. I can't wait to listen to it. Make sure you guys tune in. It's gonna be a hell of an interview.
So the audios have been dropping on Wednesday with the absence of sessions. So you guys they're delayed. So the last one that dropped was Jordan Collins. If you guys are video consumers, you guys see the Jordan Collins dropped 2 weeks ago. Sam Hain will be dropping this Wednesday. And the week after that will be Brother Greatness. And the week after that will be Fight or Die. So I have a whole bunch of guys scheduled up here. So stay tuned for that. Obviously, you can check at ACEFIELD Retro for all the upcoming reminders and shows. We got Remarkable Wrestling, Better Than the Best 2 coming up. Steel Cage Warzone 5-on-5. Going to be Night of Wrestling. So February 24th, Deer Park, New York. Get your tickets in advance at the NYWC Arena. And also to check out my Instagram as well, Remarkable Wrestling. There's some news going on about a new school opening training program. So hit up at Remarkable Wrestling or email remarkablewrestling@gmail.com for more information. Top of the line, top tier training, top tier lessons in wrestling. So if you're interested in becoming a pro wrestler, that's the place to do it. I mean, the product speaks for itself. So Mike Belcaster, I've said enough here. What is going on, Fig Night? I know you guys missed it last week. I missed it so greatly. Fig, tell me about it.
No, I'm dying over here. I get just seasonal flu sicknesses. I'm licking my kids when they come home, and then their school germs translate right into the blood.
Luke?
Yeah, Bushwhacker Luke style. So, the sickness got me. I was lucky enough that I was able to muster up the courage to make myself up here for some greatness, because the wrap-up was a damn shame this week. I apologize. But listen, we're gonna get better at it, I promise. Next week, I'm hoping Tom will be back to join me, but if not, it's gonna be a quality ass episode. I know we're planning on getting some guests coming on for some future upcoming episodes, possibly some guys from ringside, our old friends from Jazzwares, Mattel. Stay tuned for all that fun stuff. We got some good reveals coming out. There's new pre-orders up, so shit is happening. I still have to show off the Danhausen Heels and Faces figure that just graced my lap. Super happy about that. And we got some cool stuff coming along. The Raw's War Ring that Mattel just made, that's on its way here. So regardless if the OG Fig Kid can make it or not, it's still going to be a great episode. I won't leave you guys hanging. I got your backs, bros.
And I love the Danhausen picture that you put up there. Danhausen himself liked it. So
yes,
cool. And you continue to crush on the Fig photography. Follow at Mike Belcaster for all the goodness you guys can get for your Fig stuff and all good content. Follow the good brother Mike Belcaster. He's always crushing it. Very thankful to have you in my life, my friend.
Likewise.
Happy to go on this journey with you. And I'm also, I'm thankful to be doing this. And we're approaching WrestleMania season. As we approach that, we got some good stuff with GCW coming along with the collective. I mean, we got fucking Kota Ibushi taking on. He's in GCW. What else can you say?
Yeah, we might have to dig up the fucking GCW show for that weekend and do a special. It deserves it. It might need it. It might be me and you doing it. Maybe we talk that bad chat into joining us for it, because the collective is always something of a spectacle, and why would we not cover that shit? Because it's the best fucking WrestleMania weekend has to offer, I think. Yeah,
and Kota Ibushi's taking on Speedball Mike Bailey, but he's also taking on a whole bunch of other people. I think he's wrestling. I want to say he's wrestling 3 matches that weekend across different promotions. So
yeah, he's doing a Bloodsport match.
Yeah, the Bloodsport match. I think that's with Speedball, right?
Maybe. Yeah, I didn't know the details.
I know they announced that match, so I know Kota blew my mind, and Lauderdale got him to come out there. I don't know. We could see Kota in AEW too. I know he's he wants to be a freelancer, but it would be awesome to see him just a one-off. Let's get him with Kenny Omega with the Golden Lovers.
You can't have Kota Ibushi a free agent without throwing him Kenny Omega's way for a little bit. Come on,
Golden Lovers Tag Team Championship run, please.
Hopefully, or at least a comeback. Maybe we could get a heel Kota turning on Kenny. I haven't seen that. That would be good. Yeah, I got some bold statements going on for 2023, man. Be looking forward to it.
So as we build towards WrestleMania 39, stay tuned to the Turnbuckle Tavern. You guys will get all your fix for everything we have going on here. We're going to have you covered window to window, wall to wall for all the wrestling content you need. And stay tuned for obviously Monday. Thank you for the support for Wrestling Tonight, myself and the One Bad Chad talking about all the news in wrestling, going through the quick hitters and talking about all the big stories. Who knows what the big story is going to be this week? I don't know exactly, because that's the best part about the show. It's ever growing and ever flowing. We don't know what's going to happen as far as the wrestling world goes. We're just going to react to it. But Mike Belcaster, dude, this has been fun. I don't know how we're going to end the show. Is Vince Russo in our ear? Is it Vince McMahon? Is it Jim Ross?
Listen, bro, we're running out of sponsorship money. We gotta get the Godwins out there to do this spot
Stacker
with the
2.
Stacker 2, 1-800-COLLECT. Just cut the episode, Vince. We'll pick it up next week. It's good shit, bro.